Okay, I would like to call this meeting to order. It's 1 o'clock. The proceedings of this meeting will be recorded and made available on the internet. We'd like to move on to item 1.2 of our agenda, which is roll call. I'd ask our clerk, Jesse Clark, to please call the roll.
Thank you. Mayor Lamstad, are you present?
I'm present.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong?
I am present.
Councillor Franzen?
Present.
Councillor Braybrook?
Present.
And Councillor Cadigan?
Present.
For staff, we have Donna Taggart, CAO Treasurer.
Present.
Steve Brockbank, Director of Emergency Services.
Present.
Dylan Kosh, Director of Recreation and Facilities.
Present.
Evan Grieger, Director of Public Works.
Present.
Barb Waldron, Director of Building and Planning, CBO.
Present.
Adele Arbor, Planner.
Present.
Bianca Dragicevic, Deputy Clerk.
Present.
Derek Bertram, Planning Technician.
Present.
And Jesse Clark, Director of Corporate Services, Clerk, is present.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse. We can move on to item 1.3 of our agenda, which is land acknowledgement and moment of reflection. We respectfully acknowledge that Trent Lakes and Peterborough County are located on the Treaty 20 Mississauga territory in the traditional territory of the Mississauga and Chippewa nations, collectively known as the Williams Treaty First Nation, which include Alderville, Beausoleil, Curve Lake, Georgina Island, Hiawatha, Grandma, and Scugog Island First Nation. Trent Lakes respectfully acknowledges that the Williams Treaty First Nations are the stewards and caretakers of these lands and waters in perpetuity, and that they continue to maintain this responsibility to ensure their health and integrity for generations to come. We will now take a moment to reflect on these principles and our duties and responsibilities as members of council. Okay, thank you. We can move on to item 2 of our agenda, which is disclosure of pecuniary interest. Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
Yeah, I have a possible pecuniary interest in 12.4.1. And that's to deal with Alpine Village and Pirates Glen and Buckhorn Lake Estate water systems.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Franzen, for declaring your interest. Does anyone else on council have any interest on an item on the agenda? Please state it now or anytime during the meeting prior to discussing anything on the item you have an interest in. I see no other hands. We can move on to item 3 of the agenda, which is the approval of the agenda is circulated. Deputy Mayor Armstrong? Go ahead.
May I request to amend the agenda?
Yes, you can. Most certainly.
Thank you. I would just ask that the agenda be amended to include 2 additional reasons to go into a closed meeting under section 239(2), being B and D, to discuss personal matters about identifiable individuals, including municipal or local board employees, and labor relations or employee negotiations, and that's regarding municipal employees. And I request that the agenda be approved as amended.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse Clark. Would you be prepared to make that motion,
I
Deputy
will
Mayor Armstrong?
approve the agenda as amended.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation about the agenda is circulated and amended? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 4 of our agenda, which is adoption of minutes. We can do all the minutes at the same time, or we can talk about them individually at the discretion of council. Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
I'll make a motion to approve all of the minutes.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. Is there any conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 5 of our agenda, which is committees and boards. Okay. Item 5.1 is Environmental Advisory Committee. Item 5.2 is the Library Board. Item 5.3 is the Committee of Adjustment. We want to talk about any one of those items, or we can receive them all the same. Seeing Councillor Cadigan.
Motion to receive them.
Okay. And do I have a seconder? Councillor Braybrook. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 5.4 of our agenda, which is liaison reports for council boards and committees. Anyone have anything to report? I'm seeing none. We can move on to item 5.5 of our agenda. Bianca Dragicevic, our Deputy Clerk, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you, and through you. This report is on behalf of the Environmental Advisory Committee. So the EAC discussed the addition of an environmental implication section to the staff report template. This section would encourage staff to review projects and initiatives through an environmental lens. This section is only intended to be a few sentences and a fairly high-level review. It is also intended to look at the matters from both a positive and negative impact to the environment. The EAC had also prepared some questions to provide to staff to help facilitate the use of this section on the reporting. The EAC recognizes that not all reports and projects can be reviewed by the committee, so this would allow environmental considerations to be reviewed at the onset. Council may also refer reports or items to the EAC if they feel that there is value to do so. So on behalf of the EAC, the recommendation is that Council receive the report from the Deputy Clerk on behalf of the EAC, and that Council directs staff to add a section to the staff report template for environmental implications and to engage with the EAC for topics where additional expertise may be of value. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone want to speak to this item? Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Lamson. Yeah, I am on that committee, and we felt this was a practical but comprehensive way of making sure that any decisions that are made at this table take into consideration whatever environmental impacts that decision may have along with it. So just as we have financial implications on every staff report, the intent was to add an environmental implications section as well, so that at least it provokes staff to consider whether there are any environmental things to be considered. So that was the intent of that.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to that item? Go ahead, Councillor Brandley.
I support that initiative 100%. I think it's a great idea.
Okay, anyone else? We want to make sure we're not overworking our staff, but I think it's a short summary of what the implications, both positive and negative, are. I think that's definitely a good idea. Okay, any other questions or comments? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? Oh, sorry. We don't have a mover? Oh, I thought, okay, sorry. I thought Deputy Armstrong was moving.
I'll move it.
You'll move that? Okay.
Yeah.
Do I have a seconder for that motion then? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you. I'm looking forward to some of those positive and negative impacts. Now we can move on to item 6 of our agenda, which are statutory public meetings pursuant to the Planning Act, section 17 and 28. So I will need a motion to suspend our regular council meeting. See Councillor Cadigan for a mover. And Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. And any conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. And we can move on to item 6.1 of our agenda, which is Luciano Piccioni? Okay, I was close. President's RCI Consulting. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. And through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd like just to open up the public meeting as it is a statutory requirement. This is a public meeting under section 17 of the Planning Act to consider a community improvement plan for the hamlet of Buckhorn. A notice of today's public meeting was published in the newspaper and also on the municipal website in accordance with the Planning Act. The notice was also mailed to all prescribed agencies, public bodies, and persons in accordance with the regulations. Anyone wanting to be notified of any decision from today's public meeting must either inform myself or the clerk, and the notice of passing will be mailed to them, setting out the method and manner in which appeals may be made to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person does not send in a written comment prior to the passing of the bylaw or make an oral submission at a public meeting, that person may not be entitled to appeal the decision. And now I'll turn it over to our presenter in terms of providing comments on the community improvement plan that was developed by municipal staff and our consultant.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele Arbor, our planner. Go ahead, Luciano.
Thank you, Adele. I'm assuming someone's going to advance this for me. I'm happy to be here this afternoon to take you through this public meeting. Next slide, please. So in terms of the presentation, it won't be too long. You've seen quite a bit of this material before. I'll outline the purpose of the statutory public meeting under the Planning Act, provide you with a brief project update, have a look at the proposed community improvement project area, the proposed incentive programs, in the community improvement plan, summarize the public realm improvements that are included in that plan, and also have a quick look at the monitoring program and the marketing strategy that were added to the plan, and then discuss final steps between this public meeting and your formal adoption of the community improvement plan. Next slide, please. So really the purpose of this public meeting is to obviously meet the formal statutory requirements under section 17 and 28 of the Planning Act prior to council adoption of the CIP. The CIP is really an enabling plan that allows a municipality to provide grants and loans to property owners and tenants to promote building and property improvements within a set or defined area known as a community improvement project area. And of course, you have a community improvement plan for Buckhorn, and what we're presenting today is the culmination of the review and update of that plan. So this public meeting will not only just provide an update, but present a summary of the proposed final community improvement plan and receive any final comments from council and the public on the proposed plan. Next slide. So to provide you with a brief update, as you know, RCI Consulting worked with the staff project management team, including Adele and her team, to review the existing Buckhorn Community Improvement Plan and to develop a new CIP. I want to take this opportunity to thank Adele, Donna, and all of the rest of the staff. It was an absolute pleasure working with them, and greatly appreciated their guidance and valuable insights. And I think those have added to the document. We made a presentation to council on February 20th with an update. We then followed that up with a public meeting on March 7th, which was well attended by approximately 28 members of the public. At that meeting, we presented the draft community improvement plan. We received verbal comments, and we also received 8 written comments after the meeting. All of those comments were reviewed by myself and in association with Adele, and discussed the comments, and we did make some minor revisions to the community improvement plan as required to address those comments. As I mentioned, we developed a monitoring program and a marketing strategy for inclusion in the plan. I then prepared the final draft community improvement plan. It was again reviewed by staff, and then that final plan was circulated to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing and all prescribed agencies, and that is required under Section 17 of the Planning Act and associated regulations. The only comment we received was a verbal comment from the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing. Adele and I met virtually with their staff. They were very appreciative of the clarity, organization, and level of detail in the plan. They were very complimentary. They suggested only 2 very minor revisions, one dealing with a policy reference and another one just dealing with eligible costs. We made those minor revisions and the plan was finalized. As Adele mentioned, a notice of statutory public meeting was issued, and the final plan, which you have before you today, was made publicly available in advance of this public meeting. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. All right, I guess I can try this myself. Oh, it's up on the screen. For whatever reason, I think this is frozen. It's up on my screen.
It'd be nice for the gallery to be able to see that, I think.
There we go. There we go. Go back 1 slide, please. To the current Buckhorn. That's the one. That's it. Perfect. So this is your current community improvement project area and the current CIP. And as I had mentioned when I provided the update presentation in February, it's not a well-defined area. If you're looking at either community improvement need, zoning, official plan, designation, it's just more a freehand boundary where several properties are partially in and partially out, and that doesn't provide precision. It doesn't provide clarity. So we tackled that in association and consultation with staff to make it more a boundary that is reflective of properties that accomplish multiple goals of the community improvement plan, are definitely in need of community improvement, and we also looked, of course, at zoning and official plan status. Next slide, please. So what we ended up with was something that is much more defined, well-defined. It doesn't cross or cut properties in and out like the previous one did. And yet, to provide some flexibility, we have included a condition that if a property is immediately adjacent to this boundary, outside the boundary, but immediately adjacent, that means it's touching this boundary, it's not separated by a road, for example, then council can consider a request to allow that property to be, for the purposes of the incentive programs, considered to be within the community improvement project area. That will not, however, result in a change to the boundary because we don't want progressive creep of this community improvement project area over time. So that is, again, a strategy that I've used in several community improvement plans all over Ontario, where the staff and the council want a little bit of flexibility in case something comes up, you know, a unique or major development proposal that's immediately adjacent to the property boundary, then council can consider it. Doesn't mean you have to approve it, but at least there's the opportunity for you to consider it without being in contravention of the Municipal Act. Next slide, please. So looking at the incentive programs, the first thing we did was develop a comprehensive set of general program requirements that apply to all the programs. That was missing in the current CIP, and you need that to protect the municipality's planning interests, financial interests, and legal interests. So we put a nice robust set of general program requirements in the plan. We expanded the incentive programs in the plan from 3 to 6 to address emerging community improvement needs, things such as better urban design, affordable rental housing, and providing a real incentive to larger scale community improvement and redevelopment projects. The other thing we did was we made these programs stackable. In other words, if you qualify for 2, 3, or 4 of the programs, you can use them all together as long as you meet both the general program requirements and the program specific requirements of each program. So I'm confident that this package of incentive programs will be competitive with best practices in other municipalities, both nearby municipalities and those farther afield. The CIP also now contains for each program a clear list of eligible costs and requirements. As I said, we developed a monitoring program and a marketing strategy. Those have also been included in the community improvement plan to help with implementation. So these provide guidance on how to more effectively market the incentive programs and also how to monitor and report on the results of those programs to council. Next slide, please. So briefly, now there haven't been any changes to the incentive programs. They were very well received. So there are, as I mentioned, 6 incentive programs. The first program provides a grant equal to 50% of eligible design and feasibility study grants to a maximum grant of $2,000 per study and 2 studies per property or project. The facade improvement grant program number 2, again, similar, 50% of eligible costs up to $7,500 per property or project. Building and property improvement grant, same thing, 50%. So there's an equal cost sharing between the municipality and the applicant. And the maximum grant here would be $10,000 per property or project. So if you were doing both a facade and building improvement works on your building, you could get up to $17,500, but that would require your spending $35,000 at least. Okay. The rental residential and affordability grant program provides essentially 2 types of grants. One is for rental units, rental residential units. That grant would pay for 50% of the eligible costs of either upgrading existing rental units to code and or constructing new rental units to a maximum grant of $5,000 per unit and a maximum of 3 units per property. And then the second part of that is if the unit's also affordable, so it's an affordable rental residential unit, that 50% grant can be increased to $10,000. But whether the unit is rental residential or affordable rental residential, it must remain in that state for a minimum of 20 years. That's a requirement in the community improvement plan. That requirement's in an appendix, so that can be changed. It can be increased or decreased without any formal amendment to the plan. Looking at the tax increment grant program, now this is the program where essentially the municipality uses the property tax increase that's generated by a larger project to provide an annual grant for up to 10 years to the proponent of that project. However, and it's 80% of the property tax increase that would be provided in the form of that annual grant for up to 10 years. However, we've specified that the project must create a minimum increase in assessment value of $200,000, and that's a 2016 current value assessment because that's all we have to work with at this point in time. Again, that requirement's in an appendix. It can be changed. All right. And the final program is a planning and building fees grant program, which provides a grant equal to 75% of the fees paid for a number of planning and development applications, building permits, to a maximum grant of $5,000 per property or project. But the key here is that that only applies if you've used one of the other programs like facade improvement, building improvement. It doesn't apply if somebody just goes ahead, doesn't use one of the other programs and then comes in and says, I want a rebate. No, you have to actually be involved in one of the other programs. Okay, so that's just a quick run through. Obviously, there's a lot more detail in the plan, but that gives you a good sense of a wide-ranging, comprehensive set of incentive programs that I think are manageable, both from a financial perspective and from a staff administration perspective. Next slide, please. So this is the slide where I mentioned that the implementation of the programs is entirely at the discretion of council. I do strongly recommend that all 6 programs be implemented as soon as possible. But if that is not possible, then I have provided a suggested priority for implementation, with the first 3 programs being priority 1 and the second 3 being priority 2. But quite honestly, I think it's a manageable set of programs that should all be implemented as soon as possible once the community improvement plan has been adopted. Next slide, please. Now, the public realm improvements, again, build on and are largely based on the recommendations in the Trent Lakes Open Space Master Plan and the comments we received from the public during and after the March public meeting. The focus is on enhancing gateways, landscaping and signage, parks, walkways and trails, and including improvements to Odenang Park, parking and roadways, exploring opportunities for additional off-street parking, additional public parking signage, enhanced parking bylaw enforcement to deter parking on walkways. We heard that message loud and clear. Most of these improvements are mentioned, as I said, either in the Trent Lakes Open Space Master Plan or other documents, but we wanted to sort of focus in on these 4 key improvements in the Community Improvement Plan because we think these are the things that are most important as support type initiatives for the Community Improvement Plan. And the final one was wayfinding signage, both on overall signage strategy, directional signage, and to amenities and interpretive signage at Odenang Park regarding the Trent Severn Waterway. We felt that could also be improved. So these are not things that have to happen tomorrow, but they are things that will improve the chances of success with the Community Improvement Plan. So again, those should be taken into consideration in terms of capital budgets and planning in the future. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, a monitoring program has been included in the Community Improvement Plan. It specifies for each program the variables that need to be monitored. It's designed to do a number of things. One is to track how much funding is dispersed by program to determine which programs are being most utilized or least utilized. It's designed to determine the economic impacts of projects so that the municipality knows what is the total return on investment for its incentives that it's providing, how much money it's leveraging, and the effectiveness of the program. And finally, staff would also be looking at feedback from applicants on the programs. Are the programs helping them? Are they providing the types of assistance they need? How can they be improved? And how is the administration working? And how can it be improved? So all of that would be monitored and the results would be used to provide regular reports to council, recommend at least annually. Staff can make minor adjustments to the incentive program terms and criteria as required using that information, again, in most cases without a formal amendment to the plan. And it also provides valuable input into the next comprehensive review of the Community Improvement Plan, which should take place within 5 years. That's the norm for these types of plans. Next slide, please. So again, we included a marketing strategy, and marketing of these programs is very important to the overall effectiveness and success of a community improvement plan. I've seen some very good community improvement plans that were not well marketed, and inevitably they fail. I've seen some modest to good community improvement plans that were heavily marketed and they were as effective as they could be. So it's really key. And the marketing strategy that we've provided can be used by your economic development staff to it provides a general guide to advertise and market the CIP incentive programs, but that can be certainly adjusted by your staff to suit your needs. But it does identify key marketing messages, target audiences, and prime marketing tools that can be used. Again, the marketing strategy should be implemented as soon as possible after council adopts the community improvement plan and decides to move forward with the programs. It's very important to the success of that community improvement plan. And again, it should be adjusted over time by staff based on the messaging, targeting, and marketing tools that prove most effective over the first year or 2 years, for example. Next and final slide, please. So that brings us to our final steps. We are very close to the end of this process. We will receive comments and direction from council at this public meeting, and if there are any comments from the public, of course, we will revise the plan if necessary. And once that plan is brought back, then council would pass a bylaw to designate the community improvement project area and adopt the new Buckhorn community improvement plan. That can happen as early as the next council meeting, assuming there are no major revisions that need to be made. The clerk would then, once council has done that, pass the designation bylaw and adopted the new CIP by bylaw, the clerk would issue a notice of adoption for the Buckhorn community improvement plan. Once that notice is issued, there's a 20-day appeal period. If there are no appeals to the Ontario Land Tribunal, the CIP would then be formally approved at the end of that 20-day appeal period, and implementation of the new CIP could commence, and frankly, it could commence as early as September 1st if the CIP is adopted at the next council meeting. So that concludes my formal presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions from council or the public. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Luciano. Great presentation. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak to this item? Go ahead. Please state your name for the record.
Yes, Janet Klein. I just have like an obvious question, but where does the money come from? Like, does the municipality borrow, or is it already within our coffers, or to provide the money?
Through Mr. Mayor, I'll answer that question. So the current Buckhorn Community Improvement Plan, which has been in place for quite a number of years, does have a budget allocation every year. And the current year budget allocation is $35,000. Now, because that plan hasn't been taken up in terms of the incentive programs as much as we would have hoped, there is a balance remaining to help fund this community improvement plan for the rest of this year. And then during the budget process, that's when staff would come back and say, we think we would like a budget of X dollars for next year, and so on. Okay, now in terms of budgeting, the tax increment grant program is essentially self-financing because that is taken from property tax revenues of properties participating in the program. That grant is paid on an annual basis based on 80% of the property tax increase. So the municipality actually retains 20% for up to 10 years, and then at that point it retains 100%. The other programs, the facade improvement, building and property improvement, residential grant program, those are actually what's funded from the annual budget allocation.
So those do affect our taxes, the rest of people taxes.
In a minor way, yes, because this budget is as I said, it's $35,000. I don't anticipate that you would need a large increase next year, if nominal, modest, because you have to remember with most of these programs, the applicant has to actually do the work, in most cases apply for a building permit, in some cases get planning approval, then complete the work, and then submit their eligible costs. So that takes time, right? So even if you launch in September, you're not going to see grants being paid out until next year, right? And even then, it could be later in the year.
Okay, any other questions from the, go ahead, Janet.
Could you give me an example of who would go to the OLT?
I've been doing this a very long time, almost 25, actually 25 years. I've done 50 of these plans now, and I've only seen one appeal to the OLT. It is a very strange case. It was in Windsor, and it was the old Sandwich Town Community Improvement Plan, which I had prepared along with another consultant. The owner of the Ambassador Bridge in Windsor owns a lot of property around the bridge. And Matty Mahone, I believe his name was, and he decided to appeal it. No one could understand why, but he did. We got all ready for the, at that time, Ontario Municipal Board hearing. And then there was some sort of settlement like 2 weeks before the hearing. And I don't really know we didn't make any changes to the community improvement plan. So I'm really not sure what the settlement was. Matty, he was in his 90s. He then passed away and his son took over the ownership of the bridge. So yeah, honestly, none of the planners or the lawyer who prepped us understood really why he was appealing it. It was more like I've had an acrimonious relationship with the city of Windsor for many years. I think I'll just continue that till I die. So it was one of those things.
Fair enough. Okay, any other questions?
And one more, is John Earl Chase within that? Is it John
No.
Earl Chase? It's not anywhere
No,
near. I
no.
was looking at the boundaries.
Okay, anyone online have any questions?
I'm not seeing any.
Okay, anyone else in the gallery have any questions? Go ahead, please state your name for the record.
Molly Crickson. How many times can you apply for this program? Is it an annual basis or can you apply more than once?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it's a good question, and I'll give you an example of facade improvement grant. So let's say someone comes in and they want to improve the front facade of their building. So you can apply for that, and then you decide to do the side facade a year or 2 years later. You can also apply for that. So you could submit 2 applications, but the maximum grant of $7,500 still applies. Okay, and the other programs are the same.
Okay, any other questions in the gallery? I'm seeing none. Does council have any questions?
Sorry.
Okay, we do appear to have one question online.
Yep, I'll unmute Catherine Mitchell.
Okay, Catherine Mitchell, can you please unmute yourself and speak to the item?
Catherine, if you're trying to talk, you're still muted.
Are you there, Catherine? I love technology when it works. Is she still there, Jesse?
Yeah, she's appearing offline, but
Mhm.
we can keep an eye on it and see.
Okay, is there any other questions from council? Go ahead, Councilor Cadigan.
Luciano, pardon my ignorance, but what makes a unit affordable, rental unit?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the definition we've come up with, which is pretty standard, is that it's a residential unit intended for use as a rented residential premises where the tenant is dealing at arm's length with the landlord, and the rent is the least of a unit for which rent does not exceed 30% of gross annual household income for low and moderate income households, or B, a unit for which rent is at or below the average market rent of a unit in the municipality. It has to be the lesser of those two. Okay. Again, that definition is in an appendix, and if the municipality decides to change it, make it more onerous or less onerous, you can do so without formally amending the community improvement plan. You just go in and change the appendix.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councilor Graber.
Thank you. Thanks, Luciano. Again, just a couple questions. First one for the benefit of the residents. How was it decided that what area was going to be included in the CIP? Because I see that the one area, the delineation is just right on the border of a subdivision that have many, many houses that could potentially take advantage of that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councilor, we tried to really focus on the core. So commercial properties in the core, mixed use properties, and then a small sort of residential area around it, kind of within walking distance where perhaps we could see some more affordable rental units in second floors, third floors, those sorts of things. We also, though, looked at the zoning on the properties, because if the zoning sort of didn't conform to those community improvement needs, goals, and what we're really trying to accomplish with the plan, then, we kind of excluded it. So what I can tell you is that in terms of area, it's about the same as the current community improvement plan project area. However, it's much more well-defined. And I think there's a much better association with, current uses, potential future uses, zoning, and the need in terms of, do these properties need community improvement? Look at them, look at their functionality, is there underutilization? We weighed all of those things, and in consultation with staff, that's how we developed that community improvement project area map.
Just a follow up to that. How many, in your research, how many properties did you identify as potential candidates for a rental property?
So we didn't specifically look at each and every residential property and say, or mixed use property and say, that's a candidate. There were a number of candidates right in the core mixed use properties where the second stories and even the third stories are underutilized. So I wouldn't be surprised if, you could probably generate a dozen or a dozen and a half, maybe even 2 dozen units there. And then there were some other properties nearby that could also generate that. But realistically, I think, over the life of the plan, if it's a 5-year plan, if you can get 3 units a year, that would be outstanding. That would be another, 15 units shopping down in Buckhorn, using the services in Buckhorn and so on. So it's not a big area per se. And it's not like some of the other large Ontario municipalities that have big sort of commercial areas and mixed use areas. So you have to kind of be realistic about how many units can we create.
Okay, can I just go online? Catherine's back. We might be able to contact her, then we'll get back to your questions. Councilor Weber? Okay. Okay, Catherine, one more time.
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. My internet's been unstable today. Just a quick question about the rental component. I'm joining this conversation a bit late, so I just wanted to confirm if the rental component is residential, commercial, short-term rentals. What is the rental component?
Right. So the rental residential and affordability grant program applies only to existing rental housing stock to bring it up to code, or creating new rental housing stock. Okay. It does not apply to short-term rentals, and it does not apply to commercial. There are other programs for the commercial properties.
Okay, great. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, that's all. That's your question?
That answered my question.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we can move back to Councilor Weber. Go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, just a last question, Luciano. It's more of a clarification for me. In page 8, where it's the incentive program, you have the chart there, the 6 programs. Program 4, you said that if one wished to adjust the 20-year time requirement, either reducing it or expanding it, they could do without an official amendment to the plan. And in point 4, it says all units must remain rental units, affordable units for a minimum of 20 years.
Now you're saying page 8 of your agenda?
52 of our agenda, page 8, there it is.
Yes. That's right. So we just did that for information purposes. If you actually look at the summary of incentive programs in the community improvement plan, which is page 26 of the community improvement plan, it actually says must remain as rental residential units and affordable rental residential units as applicable for a minimum period of time as specified by the municipality. See Appendix B. So I just put the 20 years in there so you'd know what it was without having to flip to Appendix B in the CIP. That's just for the presentation. It's not in the community improvement plan. The community improvement plan actually refers to Appendix B, where the 20 years is specified and can be changed.
Okay. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it was just.
Good catch.
It was just
Nope.
sort of, it leads me to believe that I wouldn't be able to reduce it from 20 years.
Yeah, no, good catch. It's just in there, so I didn't have to say, please refer to Appendix B, and by the way, in Appendix B, it says 20 years, but that is the way it's structured in the plan.
Could that be possibly amended just for clarity? Because I mean.
The presentation, the PowerPoint?
No, the actual, where it says, I know you were saying about Appendix B, wherever it's stipulated in it, where it's detailed, where one would be drawing conclusions from the official, I guess, section in the appendix.
Yep.
Could the language be adjusted? Because that could, I mean, if it's 20 years, if I wanted to rent my second floor, I would look at that and read it as I'm not gonna, I don't want to commit my property to 20 years.
Through Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if I understand the question. Are you asking me if the 20 years can be reduced? Or are you asking me, is it clearly specified in the plan that you refer to Appendix B? And in Appendix B, it says 20 years.
Yeah, no, it's can it be reduced? That's my.
Yes, it can be reduced simply by reducing the, not on a case-by-case basis. It can be reduced if council decides we're happy with it staying rental or affordable rental for 15 years. You just go in Appendix B, you change it to 15 years and you're done. 20 years is kind of the standard. In fact, some municipalities are asking for 25. So I think you'd have to think long and hard about reducing that down to a lower time frame. My concern would be if, say, you reduced it to 10 years, are you getting the bang for your buck when it's only going to be a rental for 10 years? So it's just something to think about. But yep, very easy to change.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong, you have a question? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lamson. A comment and 3 questions or comments. First of all, excellent, thorough presentation, really good work. I was a skeptic in terms of whether we needed this kind of study, but I think your experience with 50 of these has really helped inform and improve the plan that we have. My 3 comments. First of all, it may be in the detail, but I'm disappointed it isn't brought forward that we build in incentives for environmentally friendly improvements. I know that came up at the public meeting, and it would be around things like encouraging people to put LED lights in, or rather than paving over their drive and their parking lot, they consider a permeable surface so that the water can't flood, or that in landscaping, they use more native plants. So I'd like to see something in the detail of the plan where we encourage environmental initiatives, sort of building on our earlier agenda item. The second thing is marketing. This is not a gargantuan effort. I mean, we have probably 20, maybe 30 establishments, because they need to be businesses within the CIP area that would be eligible for this. So it just requires a laser focused, targeted marketing, and probably personal to get to those people, because awareness is why it frankly failed in the past. I mean, I don't think we spent more than $10,000 or $12,000 over 5 years. So clearly we haven't done the job. So marketing, 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 and laser focused. The third thing is just, you had a slide on public realm improvements, and most of those are, as you said, included in our open space plan. I would just like to put a tickler in there somewhere that when we get to budget for 2025, we prioritize the things that you identified when we're looking at funding future open space initiatives, specifically what we do in Buckhorn. And I forgot, I have one more comment, which is simply that this dovetails very nicely with our economic development plan. As you asked Janet about where the money's coming from, it's clearly an investment in economic development. And number 1 goal in our economic development plan was to improve the commercial core of Buckhorn to better support residents and visitors. So fits in very nicely. It's aligned with it. It's certainly worth investing money to do, and it will reap rewards. So I think if you could just comment on the environmental incentive part of it, I would appreciate that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the councillor. So we did incorporate some of the environmental suggestions into the goals of the CIP. So they are different than was previously and more focused on a number of the environmental concerns that were brought up. What we didn't do was, for example, with the Building and Property Improvement Grant Program, if someone is coming in for parking lot improvement, we didn't mandate that it has to be a permeable surface, because the risk is that somebody wants to do it, but the permeable surface may cost more and they decide not to do it at all. I think it's something where you would encourage that. So when the program guide for that program is developed, you would say, we strongly encourage the use of permeable surfaces to reduce and mitigate the impact on the environment. But forcing people to do it may push them away. Okay, so we did beef up the goals on that, and there's no reason the program guides can't promote a number of those environmental initiatives.
Yeah,
Okay.
and thank you. And that was the wording that I used, was encourage.
Yeah, and I think we did beef up the goals to use that kind of wording. I don't have the goals in front of me. I left them out when I printed it, but we did in fact beef up that wording.
Sorry, would we be able?
Oh, hang on, here we go. I do have them actually.
Would we be able to see a full copy of the program? Because obviously there are a lot of details that you're referring to that are in the program document. They're not in the presentation.
You don't have the community improvement plan document in your package?
I
don't think we have the full package.
We did.
Okay, well, I'm sure that can be, we definitely can get you that. Yep. Yeah, we did beef these goals up a little bit. Adele, you want to get them the whole
We'll
document?
circulate the CIP. I was waiting for the results of the public meeting. It's on our website. We provided it a draft copy to council, but I felt that if we were to make any changes to it, I didn't want a number of copies floating around, and so it will be provided to you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think we have someone else online. Let's see, will you unmute them?
Yep, I have Steve Latimer. I'll unmute you now.
Hello, Steve, are you online?
I think I am. Can you hear me all right?
A little bit low on volume, but please
Okay,
speak.
good. I'll speak. Thank you.
Please speak to
Couple
the
of
CIP.
things. Yes, I didn't catch your presenter's name. May I have it, please?
The presenter's name
Yes.
is Luciano P. Piccioni. Piccioni?
Piccioni.
Piccioni.
I'll get that later. Okay, thank you. Just a couple of things. Can you give me some examples of what a mixed-use property is? Just point me to a couple of mixed-use properties in Buckhorn that I would recognize kind of on the main drag as mixed-use properties.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So a mixed-use property would be a property that combines residential and commercial use. So commercial at grade with at least one apartment or dwelling unit above. It could be mixed commercial and institutional. So a lot of the properties in Buckhorn would actually fall into that category.
So on the main drag, could you point to a business specifically, the name of a business that I would recognize when I drive into Buckhorn that is an example of it? One or two?
Any business that has an apartment above it.
Okay, and I don't get into Buckhorn. Okay, that's fine.
General store, the ice house, the
I'm sorry,
pharmacy.
I didn't hear the.
Yeah, there's several that have apartments above them, the general store.
Okay, no, that's fine. Absolutely, that answers my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Let me just see. And some examples, you talked about some environmental considerations. Could you just give me some ideas about some of the examples that you would have considered in the environmental assessment specific to this program?
Sure. So if we look at the, through you, Mr. Mayor, if we look at the Building and Property Improvement Grant Program, things like flood mitigation measures would be one of them. So planting of native species, for example, would be an environmental flood mitigation matter. Things like energy efficiency retrofits, again, achieving an environmental objective. Those are all eligible. And even there's a clause that says other similar building repairs and improvements related to health, safety, risk management, and environmental issues as may be approved by the municipality. So if it's not in the list of 8 types of improvements, but something's brought forward where staff say, hey, look, this definitely helps improve the environment, we should consider it, then that can be an eligible cost also.
Okay, does that answer your question, Steve?
It does, and I've got one more, and it goes back to Councillor Braybrook's question about reducing the term. So that 20 years, obviously, that is negotiable or variable. Is there a minimum that is required?
There's no minimum or maximum. If you look at some of the provincial guidance on this, it's 20 to 25 years. I don't know of a municipality that's implemented a rental grant program or affordable rental grant program that's less than 20 years. Mm-hmm. And it's not negotiable in the sense that once you specify the minimum term in your community improvement plan in the appendix, then that is the term that everyone has to live with. And the way that term is enforced is as a condition of the grant, the applicant will have to enter into a grant agreement with the municipality, and the municipality in that grant agreement will specify the minimum term for the rental or rental affordable as the case may be. Again, if the municipality wishes to lower that, then it just simply lowers the number in the appendix, but that thing shouldn't bounce around like a ping pong ball. It should be specified and left unless there's a strong reason to reduce or increase it.
Okay, does that answer your question, Steve?
It does, thank you. I'll have another one, but it's not related to this, so thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your comments. Okay, any other questions from the gallery? Go ahead,
I
Tammy.
just have one more through you, Mayor. Through the grant agreement, is there any consequences if a grant is approved and then the business closes within a certain amount of time? Or now that it's big and beautiful, that it's sold for 3 times its worth or something?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, a very forward-looking question, good question. Other municipalities' best practices are not to punish businesses that take advantage of the grant and then start up and fail. And the primary reason for that is if you're doing facade improvement or building and property improvement, the building's still improved, even if the business fails. So someone else may come along and want to start the same type of business or a similar business, and that makes it easier for them to do that. And as far as the property value goes, no, the municipality does not get involved in saying, well, by providing you with a $10,000 grant, you increase the value of your property by 20 or 25,000. You closed after 6 months or a year, we want part of that back. No, that's just not the way these things are done, and it's not a best practice. And I wouldn't recommend doing anything like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Any other comments or questions from council? I'm seeing none. Any other comments or questions from the physical gallery? I'm seeing none. I think we can have a motion to receive. Okay, all right, we will move on to item 7 of our agenda, which is business arising out of the statutory public meeting, and I will entertain a motion to reconvene our regular council meeting. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover and Councillor Franzen for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We can now move on to item 7.1 of our agenda, which is Adele Arver, our planner. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Lambshead, following the public meeting held this afternoon and the comments that we have received, it doesn't appear to necessitate any changes to the community improvement plan. So it's being recommended that staff bring forward to the August 6th council meeting a bylaw to designate the community improvement project area and a bylaw to adopt the new CIP.
Okay, thank you very much, Adele. Is anyone prepared to make that a motion? Seeing Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? See Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. I would like to thank you very much, Luciano, for your presentation, very detailed and thorough, and you answered some complicated questions. Thank you very much for having all that documentation with you.
Thank you to you and council. Thank you very much.
Okay, now we need to go to section 8 of our agenda, which is statutory public meeting pursuant to the Planning Act, section 34. So I would entertain a motion to suspend our regular council meeting once again and go into a public meeting. See Councillor Graber for a mover, Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on now to our item 8.1 of our agenda. And I think someone would like to do a preamble. Planning technician Bertrand.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead, this is a public meeting under Section 34 of the Planning Act. Consider an amendment to the municipality's comprehensive zoning bylaw B 2014-070. A notice of public meeting was circulated for today's application containing the prescribed information to all landowners within 120-meter radius of the subject lands at least 20 days prior to the meeting, and a sign was posted on the subject lands in accordance with the Planning Act. The notice was also mailed to all prescribed agencies, public bodies, and persons in accordance with the regulations. Anyone wanting to be notified of any decision from today's public meeting must inform either myself or the clerk, and the notice of passing will be mailed to them, setting out the method and manner in which the appeals may be made to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If a person does not send in a written comment prior to the passing of the bylaw or make an oral submission at the public meeting, that person may not be entitled to appeal the decision.
Okay, thank you, Derek. You introduce the next file.
Thank you. Through you again, Mr. Lamb, Mayor. On today's agenda, we have a zoning bylaw amendment 2403 submitted by Roseanne Biles of Fire Route 89. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment application is to rezone a parcel of rural to shoreline residential environmental protection zoning. Section 4.12 of the comprehensive zoning bylaw does not permit the construction of a permanent residence which is accessed via a private right-of-way on rurally zoned lands. Only a hunt camp, forestry use, or agricultural permitted as per section 412.4 subsection C. The applicant is proposing a one-story dwelling having a gross floor area of 180.6 square meters or 1,944 square feet. There's a planning report on today's agenda from the municipality's planning consultant, Chris Jones, which is in support of the proposal. And at this time, if there are any members in the public that would like to make an oral submission in the physical gallery, please raise your hand now. Or if there are any members in the virtual gallery, please use the raise a hand function to be called on to make your submission.
Okay, thank you very much for introducing the file, Derek. Is there anyone in the physical gallery that would like to speak to this item? I'm seeing no hands. Is there anyone in our virtual gallery that would like to speak to this item? I am seeing no hands. Okay. We just move on to the next item. Is there any questions from council? I'm seeing none. Okay, we can move on to item 8.2 of our agenda. And Derek Bertram, our planning technician, could you please introduce the file?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead. Our second zoning bylaw amendment is submitted by agent Tom DeBoer of TD Consulting on behalf of Arlene and Jason Thompson for the property known municipally as 149 West Clear Bay Point. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to replace an existing seasonal dwelling within the 30-meter water yard. The applicant is seeking relief from the as of right 50% expansion of the ground floor area provision to an expansion of 73%. The applicant is also seeking relief from the distance from a private right-of-way of 12 meters or 39.4 feet to maintain the existing setback of the existing dwelling at 0.5 meters or 1.6 feet. And the distance to an interior side, northerly interior side yard setback of 4.5 meters to 2.2 meters. There is a planning report on today's agenda from the municipality's planning consultant, Chris Jones, who is in general support of the replacement dwelling. Further comments have received after the posting of the agenda from a neighbor, which have also been circulated amongst the existing Kawartha Conservation Authority and the other neighbor comment. And at this time, if any members of the public would like to make an oral submission in the physical gallery, please raise your hand now. Or if there are any members in the virtual gallery, please use the raise the hand function and wait to be called upon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. There, is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak to this item? Please state your name for the record.
Tom DeVore, TD Consulting.
Okay, go ahead, Tom.
Being the applicant for the owner, we just want to bring it to the forefront that we have been working with municipal staff. We've gone through 2 pre-consultations. There's been various iterations of the site plan. However, we came to a sticking point of the dimension associated with the private access. I just want to make note that the private access, besides servicing the property in question, we only service one other additional dwelling at the end of the road. So it's essentially a driveway more than an actual access road or thoroughfare for vehicular traffic. In addition to that, we have not seen any other negative comments from other area residents or the Conservation Authority, who apparently is in support of the application. We have done everything we could in order to achieve this particular location of the dwelling. However, the sticking point of the location between the water and the road is very challenged and very narrow, and therefore we wanted to respect the existing setback that currently exists. Having done many planning applications in the municipality, this is not the first one that we're putting close to an access for various reasons. And we would ask that although Chris Jones and the planning consultant has provided 2 options, we would like to exercise option B, which is the approval, and the conditions therewith are easily attainable. We also want to bring to the table that although the municipality is now currently engaged in the septic permit review process, our previous discussions with Peterborough Public Health and site visit have proven that we can remove this current dwelling from an existing holding tank to a full class 4 system currently on the property, which I believe is better for all the participants involved in this application. With the side yard setback, we did have some negotiations whereby the neighboring property is actually owned by the applicant's parents. And we were contemplating a lot line adjustment, which didn't seem to be favorable in order to achieve the deficient side yard setback. However, we would still like to complete the expansion, and it's our understanding the expansion is not the issue. It's the physical location associated with the right of way. We've also confirmed with the municipality and its public works department that this in fact is not a publicly maintained thoroughfare, and therefore there's no snow plows of the large nature that we would normally see on municipal roads traversing down this section of the property. And that aside, as I mentioned earlier, we would appreciate that council take this under advisement, and that we would ask that option B in Mr. Jones' report be accepted. And we are comfortable and for sure be able to achieve all of the requirements associated with that particular option. If there's any additional questions beyond that, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anyone in the physical or virtual gallery that would like to speak to this item? We are seeing none. Any comments or questions from council? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Sorry, just a question. Do you have a permit for the new class 4 septic system, or it's just been?
So the class 4 septic system, the permit process has not been completed.
Okay.
Yeah, we just went through the motions with the Peterborough Health. We've conducted test pits. We've gone through the process. There's physical area and everything would function perfect.
Well, thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? I am seeing none. Any in the virtual or physical gallery? I am seeing none. We can move on to item 8.3 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, would you like to introduce this file, please?
Excellent. Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lamshead. This is our 3rd zoning bylaw amendment, which was submitted by agent Carrie Stevenson on behalf of Ralph and Chris Harrison for a vacant property on White Valley Road and the corner of County Road 49. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment application is a condition of consent application B15322 and B15422 for the creation of 2 new lots. Both lots shall be zoned rural residential, with the easterly lot having a portion of environmental protection as an ephemeral recharge pond has been identified on the proposed lot. There is a planning report on today's agenda from the municipality's planning technician, which is in support of the zoning bylaw amendment. Comments have been received from the Kawartha Regional Conservation Authority, who have no concern for the proposal. And at this time, if there are any members in the public that would like to make an oral submission, please raise your hand in the physical gallery. And if there are any members in the virtual gallery, please use the raise a hand function and you'll be called upon.
Okay, thank you, Derek Bertram. Is there anyone in the gallery that would like to speak to this item? I Is there anyone in the virtual gallery that would like to speak? I'm seeing none. Does council have any comments or questions? I'm seeing none. They're getting too easy. We can move on to item 8.4 of our agenda. Eric Burton, would you please speak to this one?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Our fourth zoning bylaw amendment on today's agenda has been submitted by owners Wendy and Daniel Leclerc for the property municipally known as 4 Fire Route 14A. The purpose of this zoning bylaw amendment is to replace an existing single-family dwelling within the 30-meter water yard and to permit the construction of a detached accessory garage within 12 meters of a private right-of-way. The applicant is seeking relief of the as-of-right 25% expansion to ground floor area provision to an expansion of 86%, and a reduction from the distance to a private right-of-way of 12 meters to 10.17 meters for the detached accessory structure. The replacement dwelling will be improving the water yard setback by approximately 2 meters. There is a planning report on today's agenda from the municipality's planning consultant, Chris Jones, which is in support of the proposal. At this time, if there are any members in the public who wish to make an oral submission, please raise your hand now, or if there are any members in the virtual gallery, please use the raise a hand function and to be called upon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek, for speaking to the file. Is there anyone in the physical gallery that would like to speak to this item? I'm seeing no hands. Is there anyone in the virtual gallery that would like to speak? No, no one there. Okay. Any member of council have any comments or questions in regards to this item? I'm seeing none. Wow. We must have all the details in our report from our staff, like, and our plan. Okay, we can move on now. I would entertain a motion to reconvene our regular council meeting. I see Councillor Cadigan for a mover and Councillor Braybrick for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are now back into our regular council meeting. We can move on to item 9 of our agenda, which is business arising out of our statutory public meeting. Derek Bertram, would you like to speak to item 9.1?
Certainly. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. There was a public meeting held for file 2403, and at this time, the planning memorandum has provided 2 recommendations: that this report be received and the attached zoning bylaw amendment be approved upon confirmation that the site plan agreement has been executed, which staff can confirm that the site plan agreement has been indeed executed for this property for Roseanne Biles.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone have any comments or questions, or is prepared to make a motion? I'm seeing Councillor Braybrick. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to receive and to approve the attached zoning bylaw amendment.
Okay, thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? I am seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 9.2 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, our planning technician. I was going to tell you you're taking 45 minutes again, but the last time I think I was 7, so I won't do that. You try to this item.
Thank you again. Through you, Mr. Mayor. There was a public meeting held for file 2411, and at this time, the planning memorandum has provided 2 recommendations. The first being that if council is in general agreement with the findings and the analysis of the report, it is recommended that council defer making a decision on the application and request that the applicant revise the proposal to improve upon the existing setback to a private road and provide confirmation the subject lands can contain a class 4 sewage system, septic system. And the second option was that if council is inclined to support the applicant's proposal in its current form, the following recommendations are provided. That is, the planning department be directed to prepare a zoning bylaw amendment to permit the applicant's proposed replacement dwelling in a manner illustrated in figures 3, 5, and 6 of the report. And upon receipt of or completion of the following, a submission of an application to acquire the Shore Road allowance, an executed site plan agreement, a phase 1 and phase 2 archaeological study, and a permit for the installation of the class 4 sewage system.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek Bertram.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Braybrick.
Make a motion to approve option B with all the recommendations as stated by Mr. Bertram.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation? I just want to make a little comment that improving from a holding tank to a class 4 septic system is a great improvement on a piece of property. think that that's great that we could accomplish that. Okay. Any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to 9.3 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, our planning technician, would you please introduce the file?
Certainly. Thank you again through you, Mr. Mayor. There was a public meeting held for file number 2412 for Ralph and Chris Harrison. At this time, the bylaw amendment has been advanced to council's consideration and for today's approval for the council meeting.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any comments or questions from council? I'm seeing none. Does anyone prefer to make a motion? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
I will make the motion that we receive the report and that we approve the zoning bylaw amendment reflecting the recommendations.
Okay, thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to 9.4 of our agenda. Derek Bertram, our planning technician, would you please introduce this file?
Thank you. And through you again, Mr. Mayor, there was a public meeting held for file 2416 for Daniel and Wendy Leclerc. And at this time, the planning memorandum has provided two recommendations that if council is in general agreement with the findings and analysis of the report, it is recommended that council receive the report and that the attached zoning bylaw amendment be approved. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Derek. Anyone have any comments or questions from the council? I'm seeing none. Anyone prepared to make a motion? See, Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
That the report be received and that the attached zoning bylaw amendment be approved.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Excellent. Thank you very much, Derek Bertram. We can move on now to item 10 of our agenda, which is presentations. 10.1 is Lori Ritchie, Healthcare Advancement Coordinator for the County of Peterborough. Can you please sit where you are now? Go ahead with your presentation, Lori. Thank you very much.
Am I controlling the?
No, that's good.
Okay, great. And you can hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. Today, I wanted to give you an update on what's been happening in the last 9 months since I've been in this position. Next slide, please. So Peterborough County recognized the need for a dedicated resource for physician recruitment in 2023, and I started in the role in late October of 2023. Historically, recruitment has been shared with the city and county, and it was felt that somebody who could focus on the 8 lower tier townships would be a great addition to ensure that we work towards primary care for our residents. So I'm employed by and report to Sharon, the county CAO. However, I do work very closely and collaboratively with the 8 lower tier CAOs. I prepared a work plan, and in collaboration with them, it was approved, and that kind of guides me on my work for that upcoming year. I do meet with them regularly, and from that, then I come into council each year and report to you and hopefully keep everybody up to date and in the loop. So I do bring 28 years of healthcare experience to this position, 14 years in long-term care and 14 years in primary care. Those 14 years were served with the Peterborough Family Health Team in a variety of roles, and the last 5 being as executive director and physician recruiter for both the city and the county. So I do have a relationship with all of the existing physicians that work within Peterborough County, which is a nice starting point for me in this position. I also have a background in human resources, and so recruitment has been a part of my job for 28 years. Next slide, please. So our current state is a bit of a dismal mess, and it's not just here in Peterborough County, it's not just the city, it's the province of Ontario, the country of Canada, and probably across the world. So we all know that this is not an easy fix, and this is not something that's going to happen overnight. It is currently estimated that there are more than 32,000 people within Peterborough City and County without access to primary care. And it's expected that this is going to grow to 1 in 4 residents by 2026, which would equate to 4.4 million people in the province of Ontario without access to primary care. Next slide, please. So there are many reasons for this listed by the Ontario College of Family Physicians. One includes an ever-increasing administrative burden placed upon our primary care physicians, the lack of team supports, which is not the case here in Peterborough County. All of our physicians are part of the family health team, which gives them access to team supports. The compensation for family doctors has not kept pace with inflation. And as they are independent business owners and have to pay their staff and give increases to their staff, their supplies have gone up, their rent has gone up, but their wages have not. So they've actually had a pay decrease over the last number of years. And there's a large boomer of retirements, just like our general population of baby boomers. A large number of physicians are also in that category. And COVID pushed a lot of them into earlier retirement than they had previously planned without having a replacement to cover for them. And then lastly, we have a changing workforce. We have people are looking for a better work-life balance. So the days of a family physician working 60 hours a week doing strictly primary care are gone. We have more than 50% of family physicians are now female. So they're wanting part-time practice to be able to better manage their family. And they're also looking to do other interests, such as working at the hospital as a hospitalist or palliative care or long-term care, different ones where there's not as much in administrative burden or responsibility upon them as a physician. So all of these things really validate the need for this position more so than ever. And it is my hope that over a number of years, we'll be able to ensure that each of our residents has access to primary care. Next slide, please. So during the last 9 months, I've identified a number of challenges. The first and foremost is lack of infrastructure. So you have a few beautiful facilities within your township, which is great, but other townships have grown significantly and they do not have any new medical facilities to accommodate the growth in population. So as the county continues to grow, the townships, we do need to keep that center of mind, and that if any new large subdivisions happen to be approved within your township, please consider the medical needs of those those folks. And tied into that is a lack of accurate data. So I previously said 32,000. That number came from the Ontario College of Family Physicians. I'm not sure where they gather that data from. I do know that, there are a large number. I have started my own list, which I'm going to speak about a little bit later, to try to get an accurate number of who actually resides in one of our 8 lower tier townships, who either has to travel too far for primary care and are looking for something closer to home, or B, do not have a primary care provider at all. It's from that data that will be sorted by township that I'll be able to identify perhaps where some new infrastructure should be built and where I can recruit and actually ensure that a physician has enough patients for their practice. We also have a lack of candidates. Canada does not graduate enough medical family practitioners annually to meet our need. We have to start looking elsewhere. We have to start looking internationally, and I'll speak about that in a moment as well. Another barrier that I'm facing are spousal employment opportunities. So as I mentioned, a large number of the physicians are female. Therefore, their spouse is quite often has a good career, and for them to move, we need to find them work. They're not going to, historically, perhaps the wife of a physician would stay home and raise the children. Those days are gone. Everybody needs to work now to support themselves, and everybody wants to work. Lack of daycare is a thing across the city and the county. There is currently almost 5,000 people on the list for a registered daycare, so that is a barrier as well. Housing, the housing prices within Peterborough County have risen significantly. That used to be a great recruitment tool because housing here was super affordable compared to other areas. That is rising quickly and is not so much a selling feature anymore. And the last item on that list is family health organization restraints. So all of our physicians here belong to what's called a family health organization. That is a group of physicians who have signed an agreement, and in that agreement, they agree to provide extended hours, but they also have the ability to deny or accept a new physician into their group. So just because I recruit somebody to the area does not mean that they're going to be accepted into the family health organization. You say, why wouldn't they? Well, because the resources that they receive as part of the family health team, the team supports are finite. The more physicians we add, the further that pie gets spread amongst those physicians. So sometimes it's economics. The other piece of it is the more physicians, the more after hours and extended hours that they need to offer to the patients. And so there was a negative impact upon them personally for adding physicians into their family health organization. One of our family health organizations is currently open to grow, that is in the county, and the other one is currently not. So where does that leave me? Create a new one. Next slide, please. So some of the solutions that I have been working upon, the first one I am very, very excited about. As I mentioned, we can't recruit locally so much anymore, and we do need to look internationally. We also know that that costs a lot of money to do international recruitment, and all of our smaller municipalities around Eastern Ontario do not have a budget for that. So based upon something that Southern Ontario did, I'm in the process of forming an Eastern Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance. The purpose of that is international recruitment. Mainly, it's sharing a candidate tracking tool or a database whereby we all get these leads into this database. We work collectively to promote Eastern Ontario as a whole. We link in through the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, Mayor's Caucus, Leadership Caucus, Ontario Health Boundaries. This gives us a lot of lobbying voice and the ability to make change from the ground up, from people that are doing the recruitment. We're looking to form these alliances all across the province, and then the chair of each of these alliances would form an Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance. Through this Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance, we have great lobbying power, and we have the ability to apply for different federal and provincial grants that will help offset some of the costs in bringing international candidates to Canada, and work on streamlining the red tape that they currently experience. So through EOPRA, it would be starting in 2025. We hope to attend 10 to 12 international events representing Eastern Ontario, with the premise that any physician that settles within Eastern Ontario is a win for all of us, because they all bring their friends with them. And we want people to settle into communities that resonate with them and their family. We don't want people chasing the very large incentives that some communities are offering. We want people to come to a place and settle for somewhere that aligns with them. Some of the lobbying that's happened already on an individual basis, I've listed there. But again, think of the power of doing this lobbying, A, as a province, or B, as an Eastern Ontario group. I'm also looking to create an ambassador program, because I truly believe that physician recruitment is not an individual thing. It's a community effort. I need all of you. I need all of your community members. I need those people that are attending conferences or different things, or know a friend's child who's in med school, to say, hey, reach out to Lori and, let's get you connected. So I also need, when people come to town, we need to make sure that these physicians, particularly if they're not from the area, are welcomed and they're made a part of our community. They're invited to your community events. Their children are made, we make friends for their children. We get them integrated into different sporting events, and we really make them feel wanted within our community. So not only are they serving a purpose, they're here to stay. We want them here for 30, 40 years. So I spoke about the data. So I started my own list, and we created a campaign called Your Health Matters. So that is our tagline, Your Health Matters in Peterborough County. And through that Your Health Matters, we've created social media accounts, and we've created a page on the Peterborough County website. And I've created a very simple form where I'm asking people, if you do not have a doctor or you want one closer to home, please complete this form. And also, while you're there, tell us what other services you would like to see closer to home. Is it a lab? Is it foot care? Is it physiotherapy? I just want to hear from the people. What is it that they're looking for? And then through the Your Health Matters campaign, I'm going to be launching a social media campaign in which the townships are welcome to piggyback on, and it's going to educate the public about if you don't have a doctor, what do you do? What are your options? What are your choices? So to continue to share that. And then further to that would be to host a town hall whereby I would invite members of the community to come and talk to me about their health needs, their health concerns, to educate them about their options, to make sure they're aware of the list, to tell their friends about that. Do they know anybody in med school? Do they have deep pockets? Do they want to give me a couple $1 million? You know, whatever. It's just really to get out there and just start making sure everybody knows that I'm here representing them and making sure that everybody has access to primary care. Next slide, please. So one of my first things also that I did was I conducted a survey, a health human resource survey of our 18 existing family physicians. And I asked them, you know, a number of questions. When do you plan on retiring? How much notice do you plan on giving? Do you use locums, somebody to come in and give you temporary relief within your practice? Do you currently have students? Are you interested in students? Would you mentor a new physician? So from this, I've gleaned a lot of information. I have pulled it together. It needs to be confidential, but we have 7 of our 18 that are planning to retire in 2 to 5 years. That's almost half of our group. So we really need to get going to make sure that I have people who are interested in coming to this community and start introducing them to those practices. I will be meeting with each individual physician one-on-one to come up with a plan and be looking forward to implementing that very shortly. Next slide, please. So we're just on that previous slide, we don't need to go back to it. There are currently 3 vacancies, and I have updated my slide deck because there are 2 in Kinmount that they have space for that are on my radar to recruit for, and 1 in Lakefield, as well as 1 nurse practitioner in Keene. So that is the current people that I am looking to fill. So this is the data from the healthcare needs assessment. Again, it's out of date. The most recent is there's 3,000 and about 3,200 people on the list from the 8 townships, and there's 123 from Trent Lakes Township that have expressed that they currently are looking for a physician. I have the updated slide deck that I just sent last night. So anyway, so those 123 within your township, that's not too bad. So I'm not sure if that is all inclusive. We do need to keep reminding people about this list, but I am confident that through the Buckhorn Regional Health Center over the next, 6 to 9 months, that those patients will be able to be absorbed if that is a center that aligns with them. If not, then if they're closer to the Kinmount Center, then ideally when we recruit a new physician there, then they will be able to go to that site. The physicians, Dr. Enow, as you know, is working hard bringing on new physicians, and it takes time to get those patients settled within the practice. Next slide, please. So that, in summary, is kind of in a nutshell what I've been doing. Obviously, there's a lot of networking going on behind the scenes, and again, I am here for you and your township, and I'm open for any questions that you might have about my presentation or anything else that you are curious about.
Okay, anyone on council have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor.
Okay. Thanks, Mayor, and through you. Thanks so much, Laurie. That's fantastic. And I just want to make a comment sort of selfishly that we're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Really lucky to have you. And I'm confident that our interests are being well looked after by your advocacy and that sort of thing. I have 3 questions. The first one is, can you speak to any development with addressing providing incentives to these doctors, whether they be in the future international? Because you mentioned about families, 50% are female doctors, their partners have good jobs. How do we incentivize them coming? So are you able to speak to any of the developments? Because I know we were having issues with getting around the bonusing issue. And I think that was going to be addressed. That
the Rural Recruitment and Retention Grant? that or just in general?
Just in general, like if we as a, for an example, if we as Trent Lakes wanted to, you said, hey, there's 10 doctors available, but they're looking at Trent Lakes, what can we offer as Trent Lakes? Whether it be accommodation or otherwise, something that would entice them to come and stay. But our issue was trying to get around the bonusing, the definition of the bonusing as per the municipal act. Are you able to?
Through you, Mayor. Yes and no. You know, I have each of our 8 lower tier municipalities do something a little bit different. Across Eastern Ontario, everybody does something a little bit different. I have very strong feeling that it is not financial. Many of our communities qualify for the rural recruitment and retention grant, and it's upwards of $90,000 payable over 4 years. So that's very generous. I strongly believe that it is in our best interest to help them, to be supportive of them, to be their cheerleader, to be their person. I see a very strong onboarding program is important. So I'm looking at things of when you first come here, what can we do? What can I do to help you to connect to the important services that you need using those connections that I do have? Secondly, we're offering a program called Doctor Care, 12-month subscription, which is a billing program, which monitors their billing because it's very, very complex. And it fines them about $25,000 to $35,000 annually in potentially lost revenue that they would not necessarily know about because of our complex billing system. So that gives them 12 months in which to learn the ropes, what their tips and tricks, you know, on maximizing their revenue. I've set up a formalized mentoring program, so whereby, again, the county is providing money. I have physicians who have stepped forward, who are willing to mentor on a variety of cases. And you say, why is that? Why is that important? Because physicians traditionally are reticent to ask for help because they feel that they should know the answers already. And so by offering this paid program, they're not feeling that they're burdening anybody, that person is willing, that person has the expertise in which to help them, and they're being fairly compensated for their time. So I'm looking at incentives like that, incentives that are a little bit different, incentives that actually help them. They do make a good living. They don't really need, these large $100,000 bonuses. Subsidized rent absolutely is always a selling feature. Lowering their overhead and their operating costs, absolutely. That's what we can do as townships and as communities. So part of the EOPA, or the Eastern Ontario Physician Recruitment Alliance, my goal is to start looking at some of these ridiculous incentives and saying they need to stop, because it's really, we're getting money chasers, and that's not what we want. We want people who love our communities for the right reasons. So I don't know if that answers, but.
Thank you. 2 more. The second one is the family health team. Is that model mandated by the province?
That model, through you, Mayor, that model is something that you have to apply for and be approved for. So you hear, if you follow any of the social media about physicians, primary care physicians, are saying expanding team-based care, expanding team-based care. That means making more family health team type structures within the province. Peterborough City and County has one of the largest family health teams that exist in the province, and the province stopped approving those a number of years ago. So we have probably the best model that can be within Peterborough County for all of our physicians. The key is getting them to accept new physicians into their group.
One more question? One more, yes. Thank you. So with your Health Matters chart or program, I just saw that it was 83. We were basically third last, but I think you just updated it, 123 now from 83. Is there anything that the municipality can do, whether it be on our website or otherwise, to direct people if they come to our website, they can be directed to this to actually fill out that form?
Through you, Mayor, absolutely, and I appreciate that. We could absolutely get you a friendly URL link that you could place on your website. If you could please mention it regularly on your social media accounts, if you can put it in your tax bills, your newsletters, all of that. We need to keep keep that. This is an evergreen list. This list is not time limited. This list is going to be there. So every time somebody, so, you know, I've reached out to real estate agent groups, for example, and said, when you sell a home, can you tell them? And I'm giving them information on the Your Health Matters list. So, you know, I'm trying every which way I know to get that information out there so we capture new people to our community as well as people who may not be tuned in to social media. And if they can't register via online, my cell phone is provided and they can call me directly and I add them to the list.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Cadigan, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor Lamshead. Lori, thank you very much for what you do. Personally, there's 2 members of my immediate family that don't have doctors currently, so I'm hoping. The doctor in Kinmount, did he get on a team now?
Through you, Mayor. My understanding is no, not as of yet. I spoke with a member of the board of the Kinmount Medical Facility yesterday, and she indicated that it's currently in negotiations. So it's part of a legal agreement, a physician services agreement, and it is being tabled, that discussion. We came at them from many, many angles. As you know, your township supported them, Kinmount, City of Kawartha Lakes, Halliburton, the MPs. So I would like to hope that gets changed and that he is able to join the City of Kawartha Lakes Family Health Organization.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lamshead. One comment, one question. First comment, I think it's excellent that you're initiating this Eastern Ontario Physician Recruitment Group, because you're right. It takes the power of all of you and the money pooled of all of you to actually be effective in this arena. So terrific. Thank you for that. The question, and maybe I can just confirm some numbers because I'm struggling with this. I think you said there are 32,000 people without a physician in Peterborough.
City and county.
City and county. And there are 24,000 who are currently enrolled with 18 physicians. So that means if we needed to fill the gap, we would need about 24 more new physicians just today, not even taking into account the coming retirements that are happening.
Through you, Mayor, it'd probably be more like 30 because most physicians don't even have that large a roster anymore. So generally it's taking 2 physicians to replace 1 retiring physician with a larger roster.
So we need more than double the physicians. Wow. Okay, thank you. I got it now. I didn't like that answer, but I got it.
That is through you, Mayor. That is not just for the county. That's the city proper as well.
Understand. And this new community health center, sorry. This new community health center should pick up some, but they're clearly targeting towards a certain more vulnerable population, which will mostly be the city.
Through you, Mayor, they are estimating a roster of 6,000 patients when fully operational.
Yeah, so that's
a
positive, positive sign on the horizon.
Okay, any other comments, questions from council? Seeing none, when you listed off your portfolio earlier, I think you must have started when you were 2. You have a very extensive portfolio. And I do like the social media campaign. We need to get this out. We need people to know and talk to each other. And I just thought of a person that I'm going to send to you to talk to you about physicians invoicing and billing and stuff. And I think you have a comment. Go ahead. Because you're part of the, yeah.
Yes.
I should have introduced you, my apologies.
Peterborough County, here supporting Lori. So your EDO and communications team has the full assets of everything that they can use on social media. So it's there. So feel free to use it as you wish. And we're encouraging people to promote it year round and make it part of your evergreen social media campaigns as well.
Okay, thank you very much. That's Tracy Bertram from the County of Peterborough. Thank you very much for coming to support Lori today. Okay, any other comments or questions? I am seeing none. I would entertain a motion. Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
A motion to receive the report.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? I'm seeing Councillor Braber. Go ahead. You're seconded. Any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Lori, for your presentation.
Thank you for your time.
Fantastic. Scares me that we need 30 or 40 more doctors. Okay, we can move on now to item 10.2 of our agenda, which is Alex Lemon, Account Manager at Microwave. I'm assuming you are online now.
I am hiding in the shadow, yes.
Thank you. You can go ahead with your presentation.
Not a problem. Thanks again for inviting us here. My coworker Jessica, who is a little bit more in tune to these types of presentations, is here to go through the slide deck eventually. My apologies in advance if I do trip over myself. Again, just I haven't been through this type of process before, but as some of you, or hopefully all of you, are aware, MicroAge Peterborough Whitby is your preferred technology partner for Trent Lakes, and we have been managing your IT infrastructure for the better part of 3 or 4 years and continue to refine the protection mechanisms that are in place as the threats associated with the technology these days continues to grow. So the slide deck, again, that Jessica is about to go through ideally demonstrates progress in those areas. And as new technologies come forward, we bring them to our contacts at the Trent Lakes office to consider adding them to your portfolio.
Okay.
Beautiful. Thank you, Alex. So yes, I am Jessica Erickson from MicroAge Peterborough Whitby, Alex's partner here. And I would like to say that Trent Lakes is one of our gold star partners. So looking forward to going through all the numbers with you guys. So we'll go on to the next slide to look at our fully managed stack. And this is everything that we manage and cover for you guys. So we're monitoring the server 24/7 to make sure that it is maintained and to reduce the need for reactive calls. Likewise, for all of the user workstations, we are also monitoring and maintaining those on your behalf. Included in the fully managed stack is also our EDR and MDR, EDR being endpoint detection and response, which is a fancy name for the next generation of antivirus. So unlike traditional AV, it is constantly watching for not only known threats, but known and unknown threats. So very, very handy to mitigate those zero-day threats that are becoming more and more common these days. And MDR, very similar to EDR, where it's going out and constantly looking for things. EDR is kind of like the bouncer at the door, whereas MDR you can kind of consider like the undercover security guard going around, checking all the back doors, checking all the windows to make sure that everything is good. Also very important is making sure that the patches for main applications and operating system are kept up to date. So we manage that for you as well. Likewise, with your network topology, being your firewalls, switches, access points, we also keep an eye on those to make sure that they are up and running properly and look at the reports and numbers that they track and block for you. We'll look at those numbers in a few more slides. And then there is our service desk, which is the line that all the users call if there's any reactive issues, whether it's a printer that's not working or someone's been locked out of their account. They just give our service desk a call and we are there for that immediate user support. Resolution it may not always be immediate, but we are there to immediately respond. Also included is dark web monitoring. So we use a tool that goes into the dark web and constantly scans it to see if there's any exposed credentials relating to the Trent Lakes domain. So that is very important because it can give you an idea of what cyber criminals might already be looking at. Thankfully, clean reports there. We also manage the backup, of course, including monitoring and maintaining it as well. You get biannual technical and account manager reviews. So once a year, we'll send a technician on site and they will just have a look at the physical environment to make sure that there's not a server that's getting too dusty or cables that are a little bit cluttered or rogue devices that might be a security concern. So that physical inspection is very important. And then also once a year, you get to meet with the wonderful Alex Lemon, who just looks at forecasting, new plans, new ideas where you might want to go. And that is a huge help for budgeting purposes as well. So we consider those critical. Trent Lakes is also subscribed in our email phishing security program. So monthly we are sending out, or the program that we use sends out fake phishing emails. So we can see who might be clicking on things that they shouldn't be clicking on. And along with those phishing email simulations, there's also training. So very handy as well, just to keep everyone kind of up to date on what to look out for, because your human firewall is just as important as your network firewall. And of course, after hours critical paging support. So if anything happens after business hours, you do have access to our paging service.
And so that's the core of the fully managed stuff. And then we do also offer third-party services, and we'll look at those on the next slide. So for third-party services, of course, backup is one of the most critical layers in any cybersecurity plan. If you don't have a backup and things go wrong, it makes it extremely difficult, if not impossible, to get back up and running and make sure that things can flow properly. So the backup that we have set up for you guys is not only a physical backup, but it also pushes up to the cloud. The service that we use has all of the compliances, HIPAA, PIPEDA, across the board we're compliant no matter what industry you're in. So that's always a nice to have. If anything were to go wrong with the physical device, we can use that virtual backup to spin up a virtual server so you can keep doing business as usual while we fix things on the ground. Backups are every 15 minutes, so if things do go wrong, you're only missing about 15 minutes worth of work. So that is a huge relief for a lot of people. And then the cloud backups happen every night. We don't run those constantly because they can, of course, bog down the bandwidth and just slow things down for everyone, which is not ideal. So along with the phishing email simulations and training, also in the world of email, we have the Office 365 security stack set up for you guys. That includes an inbound and an outbound spam filter. A lot of people think that you really just need to worry about the inbound spam filter, but outbound is just as important, because if something does work its way into your email environment, if it proliferates itself through your contact list and sends itself out from your email platform, you're also liable for damage done there. So inbound and outbound, very, very important on both sides. Also included is advanced threat protection. So we're not only looking for the traditional spam, but it's also going to be watching out for anything above and beyond. It's going to look for things in attachments. It's going to check the emails to make sure that they are more legitimate. So if an email was registered yesterday and it's saying, hey, click on this invoice, there's a very good chance that the advanced threat protection is going to catch that. Also in line, as I mentioned, backups. We are big on the backups being very, very important. So also included in the security stack is a backup of the email world. So anything that resides in the Office 365 tenant, whether that be in SharePoint or OneDrive, Teams, Outlook, all of those items are being backed up and archived. So let's say someone accidentally deletes their entire folder structure in their Outlook, we can pull that back down from the cloud within a year or something like that. Sentinel and Forensics, these are the two tools that we don't often use, but they are the insurance policy when it comes to email security, because if things do go wrong, we would use Sentinel and Forensics to remediate and resolve the issues that happened. Okay. And next up on the next slide are just some standard security practices that we do for all of our partners, and that is elevated multi-factor authentication through AuthPoint. And according to Microsoft, and I imagine this number is going to be a little bit skewed with AI becoming more and more popular, but according to Microsoft, enabling multi-factor authentication can actually help mitigate up to 99% of account compromise attacks. So having multi-factor authentication might seem like a little bit of an annoyance, but it is hugely helpful at mitigating account compromise risks. We also remove all local admin rights on desktops and laptops, just to ensure that people can't be downloading things that they're not supposed to, applications, visiting websites. We lock that all down. And similar to that is device encryption, because sometimes even desktops, it's not only laptops, but even desktops sometimes like to sprout legs and walk away. So with the BitLocker, it helps keep all of the information on that hard drive encrypted and secure. So unless you have the BitLocker decryption key or the password for that computer, it's just a wait at that point. So device encryption is hugely important. I would say encryption's so standard these days that most operating systems and devices have it built in. It's just whether it's enabled or not. So we always make sure that it is enabled. So that is the gist, if you can call it that, of everything that we manage and cover for you guys. So let's have a look at the current state of things. We pulled some numbers based on the securities and tools and solutions that we have in place. And first up in the current environment is the WatchGuard on the next slide. So this is a monthly average. We looked at, I believe, the last 6 months or so. We went back as far as our reports could go, but on average, the WatchGuard firewall is detecting and blocking over 100 botnets within Trent Lakes a month. That is a fairly large number. Average botnet sites blocked 10 million are scanned, 332 are blocked a month, detected and blocked 116. Average blocked websites, it's only sitting at 8, but we're scanning 2 to 3 million a month. An average intrusion prevention, we detected and prevented 2, or on average 2 every month. So definitely nothing to scoff at, particularly when it comes to botnets. I think that they are not talked about very often, but they are still one of the most under the radar threats. So we got you covered there. So the proof to the pudding on the email security stack. Oh, next slide, thank you very much. So we can see here what's being blocked, what's being deferred. So inbound, we're deferring on average about 139 emails. Based on policies, we are blocking just shy of 2,000 emails. Almost just over 800 spam emails are being blocked. A little over 100 are being blocked because of the advanced threat protection. So what it's seeing above and beyond the traditional spam. Other is a very broad category, but we're blocking a little over 2,000 there, and not too many being quarantined for an organization of your size, but we're blocking a little over 200 on average, quarantining a little over 200 on average per month. And then, as I mentioned before, outbound is just as important as inbound. So we are deferring on average 50 emails, 118 on average being blocked, and blocked for other reasons would be 97. And on our next slide, these are our average service desk calls, priorities, whatnot. So between 2022 and now, we can see that there is a little bit of a difference. We're seeing a drop in the high priority calls. So now everything is clean and managed, up to date. You can see those calls slowly starting to drop off, which is really nice. Average time open has also dropped significantly. Of course, just getting to know your environment inside and out goes a long way in helping us deal with things efficiently. So those are some nice down tracking numbers. Apologize for the background noise there. So up next, we have our email phishing security program. So I've included the number of emails enrolled because a number of emails that you guys have go up and down. So I wanted to make sure that that was associated with the amount of people that were completing the training and whatnot, so you weren't confused. So in May, we had 34 emails enrolled, 20 people completed the training. In April, 36 emails enrolled. We had 1 user click, 20 completed the training. So whenever someone clicks, we let you guys know. They get the little tisk tisk and are sent off to do some more training. In March, we had 18 people completed the training out of the 33 emails that were enrolled. February, we were up at 36, 20 completed the training. And all the way back in January, we had 33 enrolled and 18 completing the training. So just a friendly reminder to everyone, complete your training, very important. And then our last slide is just future considerations. With the way that the threat landscape is going, we are, of course, keeping an eye on new innovations, what's needed to kind of meet the current threat landscape, because we've got to be able to, have as big a sword as the cyber criminals do. So we are looking at integrating pen testing, XDR, and data privacy and compliance into our usual day-to-day for all of our partners. Pen testing being a big one, penetration testing. And that's where someone who is considered a white hat hacker, we would let them loose into your environment and they look for any vulnerabilities. Hopefully they wouldn't find any, but that is a good thing to have. Penetration testing can also go a long way to help you obtain cyber insurance if you don't have any. It can also help reduce the cost of cyber insurance because they know that there are no vulnerabilities. XDR is kind of like a combination of the MDR and EDR that I spoke of earlier. So it's a hybrid warrior of the two. And then data privacy and compliance. I'm sure everyone, all the counselors are quite familiar with privacy and compliance needs. And so we work with amazing local partners that do assessments to make sure that you are compliant across the board when it comes to your data and privacy. So yeah, we've been looking to strengthen our stack with community partners, and that has been a great addition that yeah, we wanted to put in there for future considerations for you. And that, in a nutshell, is the Microwave Trent Lakes partnership.
That's excellent, but terrifying all in the same.
Yeah.
All I'm gonna tell you is if you're Louis Vuitton or your Rolex, please stop sending me emails. Okay, does anyone on council have any questions? I'm seeing Deputy Mayor Armstrong, go ahead.
Yeah, two very minor ones in the scheme of all of this, but early on, I remember it was Bianca, I think, who was overseeing the training. I remember her sending out an email saying she couldn't tell if we had completed the training or not. And I'm just wondering if in-house, we now are able to track who's completed the training and who hasn't.
Excellent question. Thank you, Mayor Armstrong, or Deputy Mayor Armstrong. We don't get the reports until a certain date in the month, depending upon how long that month is, but it's usually around the 20th of every month when the training is wrapped up and closed, and then we receive reports from the program to let us know who has completed the training and who hasn't. So we don't even know until the training window has closed. If you're unsure, we can always have them send out a new training link. The only caveat there is that if you are not doing the training from the original email, it will not count towards your training score.
Right, I think the follow-up question is, do we, Bianca or whoever's coordinating it, get that report once it's available of who has completed the training and who hasn't?
We can make that happen. If the reports haven't been sent, we can start doing that, no problem.
Excellent, that would be great. I think it's sort of an accountability thing that we need to have the data. The second question, when data is backed up on the cloud, where are those servers physically located?
Deputy Mayor Armstrong, that is a fantastic question. I'm so glad you asked. So all of these solutions that we offer, the information is housed in Canada, and we take that very, very seriously. We do not work with partners that have servers elsewhere.
Excellent, and that's the right answer. Thank you.
As I said, you guys are our gold star partners.
First gold star ever up. Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councilor Braber.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Thanks very much for your presentation. Just to add on to Deputy Mayor Armstrong's first question, and it's also a question to our CAO. Were you I guess the training, that's the fish line, is that what you're referring to?
Yes, it is.
Okay, because I believe our CAO was able to tell me whether I was up to date on my training or not. Their CAO/principal. So, I don't know if you're able to expand on that.
Yeah, thank you, and for you. So I do periodically receive documentation that there are people that haven't completed the training, but I don't believe it's listed individually. It's just a mass email I would send out saying, please complete the training. So I would look, definitely it's not something I receive monthly. So we will look to receive that.
Just one last comment, and I appreciate you making the fish line training between 3 and 5 minutes. And also with the practice test, they allow for four answers on that. So I appreciate that. So I share Mayor Lamb's head. I've rarely gotten a gold star, so I've gotten a few on the fish line, so I appreciate it.
Okay.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again.
Hey, any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? The Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover.
A motion to receive the report.
And I need a seconder. See Councillor Cadigan for a second. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? Motion has carried. Thank you very much for your presentation and greatly appreciate it. Yeah. We can move on now to item 11 of our agenda, which is delegations, which we have none. So we can move on to item 12, staff reports, and item 12.1.1, it's Public Works. Evan Grieger, our Director of Public Works, would you like to speak to this item?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Lamson. Through you, Mayor, to members of council before you today. I got 3 reports actually. The first report we're going to go to is the Elam Lodge Road speed bump request. And just before I get into this report and my second report, my street sign, I just want to give some kudos to my Public Works Engineering summer student who's here in the gallery with me, Sarah Batcher. She's been a fantastic addition to the team. She's really assisted me with completing a lot of research that unfortunately, you know, when summer comes and it gets busy, you don't have time to complete the research. So she's done a great job speaking with different cities, different companies, looking at the various options, and she's been a huge asset. So, you know, I just want to give credit where credit's due, and it's definitely due there. So, yeah, anyways, so I'll jump into my speed bump report. So the first report before you is the Elam Lodge Road speed bump request. So just to give you a little bit of background on this, in April of 2024, as we were approaching the summer months, we were reached out by the executive director, I believe, of Elam Lodge, as well as one of his assistants. I met them on site and they raised a few concerns, specifically regarding the area close to Elam Lodge and the boat launch. So that would be, I guess, the westerly end. It's all sort of towards the water end of that road. So their concerns were in regards to one of the parking concerns of people when they drop off their boats. There's sort of a parking mess around the boat launch. Our Parks and Recreation Department is reviewing that, or Parks and Recreation and Facilities Department is reviewing that. And then the other one was concern regarding speeding. So with the concern regarding speeding, one of the suggestions that they had was looking at the opportunity of installing speed bumps. So when we did a review of speed bumps in different areas, different cities, we spoke to various municipalities. I know, for example, if anybody you are aware of the city of Peterborough, right around the Memorial Center on Morrow Street there, they actually have, they're called speed humps. So they help to slow down traffic used with their Calm Streets Peterborough initiative. So when I spoke to the different representatives, their one comment was regarding the removal of the speed bumps and the issues that it causes during the winter, especially specific to winter maintenance and the plows. So the one comment was that, you know, even if you put the signs up, and I can understand being in a plow truck before, that when it's snowing and you can't really see the signs, you don't know where the bump is, you sort of have a general idea, you're not sure, and they tend to catch the bump, cause damages to the road surface, as well as then they explored the option of removing the speed bumps during the winter months. Unfortunately, that does leave the asphalt compromised, which would reduce to a reduced service life on that piece of asphalt as there's water getting into it. And then just another important piece to note that when you're thinking about speed bumps are typically installed on asphalt surfaces. We only have about 8 kilometers of asphalt surfaces within our municipality, and that's more specific to the Buckhorn area, looking at Stabler's Way, as well as the smaller streets in Buckhorn, and then the county roads. All our rural roads, specifically that Elam Lodge Road, is a surface treated road. So that means there's typically a thin layer of asphalt on top with granular below. For an asphalt, you would have a thicker layer of asphalt until you got to the granular. So the thicker layer of asphalt actually provides a little more structural adequacy for those anchors to be driven into the ground, where if it's just a surface treatment, it's a thinner layer of surface. So it can cause issues when you have that force of the cars hitting the speed bump. So, and just to give you a little highlights of the different options, and this was actually learning for me, is there's different options of speed bumps. So there's your typical speed bump. This is your classic asphalt little speed bumps or little plastic speed bumps you see in parking lots. There's the speed hump, which I referenced is used in Peterborough. And then there's the speed table as well. So the speed table allows the car, they're much larger and they allow a full car length to be on the table of the speed slowing device before exiting. So with that, after doing the research along the speed bumps, we thought, is there different options? What other options we can use? It was actually a really interesting presentation. I'm not sure if Councillor Braywick was able to attend, talking about walkable cities and making cities more, especially specific to downtown. This was at the Ogre conference. in Toronto this year. So when I was doing my research, I went back to that and remembered, there's different visual barriers and things like that that you can add to areas that actually cause people to slow down. You might have actually seen this in Peterborough as well. I use Peterborough because it's a close municipality and it's a larger city, so typically they have more of these. So the one thing that they do have is bollards on the edges of their crosswalks and stuff, and this sort of gives you the idea of a narrower street, which causes people to actually slow down. When you're wondering, and it's kind of interesting, sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but when you look at passing lanes and the frustration is, oh, why do people always speed up when you go into the 2-lane passing lanes? It's actual the body because you feel you have more space, so you feel that naturally you can actually speed up. When people don't use cruise control, that's what happens. Their foot gets a little heavier. So when you narrow the street, it actually causes people to slow down. So that's one option that you could look at. There's a lot of curbing options. Unfortunately, in the municipality, we don't have any curbs. All the curbs are actually on Peterborough County roads, so there isn't really many options there. And the one that I sort of thought would be a good option, as it's a lower cost, lower intrusive to the roadway, but would still provide some sort of notification, is the full lane transverse rumble bars. So these as well, I've seen these observed within Peterborough County actually, and they've used them where they're transitioning from an 80 down to a 60. So it sort of catches the driver's attention that, okay, I'm entering into a zone where it's slower, makes me pay attention. Typically, if people are driving and they feel a rumble, it'll tend to slow them down because they're like, okay, is there something wrong with my car? So the intent of these is to have these as you're entering Elam Lodge, as you're approaching the park area. For any of you that have been down that road, you sort of know where that area is. There's a big wide open field on your right-hand side, then you start to encroach and there's more trailers on the right and the left. So the intent would, as you're approaching it, you have a few strips of these, and then you'd have another few strips further down, sort of to catch people's attention, hoping to slow them down. There's also options of adding some more signage, just caution signage, just to make people more aware of the surroundings, and just options like that. So staff believe that the best option for this issue that has been brought to attention would be the full lane transverse rumble bars. That's my second recommendation. It is an option that with the operating budget we currently have, we can complete it within that, with those funds. So that's also a sort of a benefit that we don't have to request more money. The other nice thing about these transverse rumble strips is if we find, a couple of years it's still not working, we can look at different options, but we haven't damaged the road to a point where it's going to cause the road to deteriorate at a quicker pace. So yeah, so I'm here to answer any questions. Sorry for the long prelude there, but I just want to give you a little bit of background.
Good information. Anyone on council have any questions? Go ahead, Councilor Braber.
Thank you, through your mayor. Thanks very much, Evan. Two questions. So the first one, I know you consulted with the residents and the owner and whatnot about the speed issue. Was there any other? Did you do anything else to establish that speed was an issue, such as a black cat or otherwise?
Thank you, Councilor Braybrook. Through you, Mayor Lamb, to Councilor Braybrook. So we have used the black hat in that area. The data wasn't great. It wasn't like, and the reason with that is that the black hat is sort of what your enforcement, and you'd understand this through your policing background, is that there's a certain enforcement rating. If somebody's only going 10 kilometers per hour, yes, they're speeding, but it's not really enforceable. So we did gather that data. Unfortunately, that data didn't really provide us with a whole lot of information that, police enforcement would help, but we're just trying different options such as this.
Okay, and just the last one, Evan, do you have any data on which option would be most effective, like from other research done, like the rumble strips or the other ones?
Thank you, Councilor Braybrook. Through you, Mayor Lamb, to Councilor Braybrook. So from what we've discussed and what you read with the different literature available online, the best way to slow down people is a speed bump because it physically makes them slow down to go over. But as I mentioned, these speed bumps in a lot of this literature is specific to different areas that, necessarily don't have as much snow load as we have, sort of thing. So, I mean, if we lived in Miami, which would be lovely, you'd have no issue with it. Unfortunately, we're in Trent Lakes, and it is a big concern of, trying to get a driver trained up, like, okay, there's a speed bump here, instead of it ending up in the ditch after we get a big snowfall. And then all of a sudden we got a hole in the road and we got to repair it. So it's one of those that it's definitely, that is the best option. If you want to slow people down, speed bumps is the best way. Then the next one would be enforcement. Unfortunately, there's no enforcement there. So we're looking at different options, especially in that area, as it's sort of a unique situation.
Any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councilor Patterson.
Through you, Mayor Lamb said, have you consulted with the fire chief for his preference? Or I know that speed bumps are hard on heavy equipment.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Cadigan, through you, Mayor Lamb's head. Actually, no, that was a good question. The one comment that when you read the literature is that they reference the fire vehicles and the impact to response times. Because if you do start placing a lot of speed bumps in areas, it will actually, and you understand this, that it'll actually slow down those trucks, so then they can't get to an accident as quick. So they have the speed humps, I believe, aren't full lengths that are used, so they give us sort of a lane for a truck to get through that they wouldn't have to hit the bump. But I mean, if there's a lane for a truck, then my thought was, couldn't a car use that same lane? But no, that's a very good comment that, no, I didn't consult the fire chief on that, but I believe he would sort of have the same thought that, thank you.
I'm starting to realize that I have a problem because I drove over all these too fast. But I do agree. I think the rumble strips make you pay attention. Like you can drive over a speed bump, you're gone, you're done, you just drive on. But the rumble strip, you're gonna go, oh, what the heck was that? So I do like the rumble strips. I think they're important added value in my view. Thank you. Okay, any other comments or questions? And I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Councillor Franzen.
I like the recommendation of the full-length rumble strips. I think that's the best option for our municipality, and I would make that a motion.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see no seconder. Councillor Braber for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, thank you very much, Evan. We can move on to 12.1.2 of our agenda, which is Evan Greger, our Director of Public Works. Can you speak to this item, please?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor Lamb. Said through you, Mayor, to members of council. Before you today is a report regarding the street sign accessibility update. This is something that has been sort of on my hit list, something I wanted to get done since I started here. I know I've seen it in other municipalities. It's typical, as you like to use the term, low-hanging fruit to help meet those accessibility requirements laid out by the province. And this is actually within our multi-year accessibility plan, is reviewing the designs regarding roadways. So this is one of the ways where we can sort of, complete something. And I believe it's good because one, it makes the municipality more accessible, but two, it actually cleans up those street name signs as you drive around and you look, some of them are looking a little rough. So this will actually allow those signs to be replaced. One, make sure those poles are straight, make sure everything's cleaned up. It'll be a sort of a part and practice of more accessibility, but also improving the overall look of the municipality. So before you today are 3 recommendations. The first is just to receive. The second is to approve the recommendation. So the sign is your typical green with white lettering, 6 1/4 inches. So first letter of the word will be capitalized, all lowercase. And then the first letter of whether it's street, road, lane, whatever that is capitalized, the rest all lowercase. And then the funds would be transferred from the service delivery funds, which we still have some remaining. So any questions up here?
Okay, thank you, Evan. Anyone have any questions about it? I'm seeing none. I think it's important to have our accessibility of signs. They should be done properly. I agree with that. Okay, any other questions or comments? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Cadigan for a move.
I move that we receive the report and approve the recommendations, redesign current street name sign, and approve the service delivery reserves in the amount of $8,048 for these new signs.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Evan Greger. We can move on to 12.1.3 of our agenda. Once again, Evan, go ahead.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mayor Lamb. Said through you, Mayor, to members of council. Before you today is actually one of my favorite reports to report to you too, because it's been such a good news story. So this is just another update on the dedicated mechanics facility and recreation and facilities people. Still working at the terminology on that. Anyways, so this is actually, and I was thinking of this as I was doing the presentation here just before it. I'll probably have one more update after this, and then once that is, then the building should be ready to open, which will mean, we'll have a nice grand opening. We'll have you guys all through there. We'll be able to tour the facility. So just to give you a little update, floors have been poured. all the masonry blocks done in the office area. They're starting to do drywall in that area. If you're looking at that picture in the top, the view looking inside, looking west, you can see the framing around the mechanical area. So that drywall has actually been put up. You can see all the garage doors have been installed. The windows have been installed. Both sand domes, I don't know if anybody's driven by the site recently, but both sand domes have been removed, which is great news. So we had our tender closed. We have our contractor ready to rock. So we were able to remove those so we can get it ready for the construction of the new sand domes, be ready for the 2024-25 winter season. So it's been a great project. We're still on time, under budget. It's been a pleasure working with MVW, which is a constructor, and Greer Galloway, which is a consulting engineer. It's just really encouraging, one, to see them working together, but also not working together where it's like the consultant saying yes to everything. You're having meetings, and it's really important to keep each other on their toes just to make sure, no, this is actually in the contract. And it's not the contractor trying to get away with stuff. It's just that's how things go with the construction project. So just been a really encouraging project for me. And it's just, like I said, we'll have one more update, and then I think we'll be ready to rock with a grand opening, which should be perfect timing just to get ready for another winter season.
That's excellent. Anyone have any comments or questions? It's an amazing project. Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Thanks very much, Evan. And in the interest of keeping people on their toes, you mentioned that the project remains within the approved tender amounts. And it's currently sitting at the amount that you've stated. Could you just refresh my memory what the approved tender amount was?
The approved tender amount was, I'm not going to give you a specific amount, but it was in the range of $9.12 million. Or sorry, $3 million. Sorry, that was
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. I just have to make a comment. You have to apologize to all the people working there for the guy that drives the big black Dodge truck through the parking lot about once a week. And have a look at how things are going.
They don't mind.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to receive that report.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Braber for seconders. And any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much, Evan Krieger. We can move on to 12.2 of our agenda, which is recreation facilities. We have none. Item 12.3, fire and emergency services. We have none. We can go to 10.4, which is building and planning, and 10.4.1. Adele Arbor, our planner, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. And through Mayor Lambshead, this report addresses.
Okay, yes, sorry. Just hold on 1 second, Adele, please. And Councillor Franzen has declared a conflict or a perceived conflict. Thank you for attending our meeting, sir. I was going to ask you a question. That's all. Okay, Adele Arbor, our planner, can you speak to this item, please? Thank you.
Through you, Mayor Lambshead, this report addresses updating an existing bylaw which regulates external uses of water in Alpine Village, Pirates Glen, and Buckhorn Lake Estates, and adding this bylaw to the municipality's administrative monetary penalty system. It is anticipated that the AMPs will garner compliance from property owners in a timely manner. Staff are also recommending the addition of a fee for requests to turn off and turn on water services while residents are away for an extended period of time and for any repairs. An appointment bylaw will be brought forward to the August 6th council meeting to permit representatives of the Ontario Clean Water Agency to enforce the watering bylaw. It is being recommended that council receive the report from the planner regarding addition of bylaw to regulate the external uses of water relative to Alpine Village, Pirates Glen, and Buckhorn Lake Estates to AMPs, and further that council support amendments to the bylaw to regulate the external uses of water relative to Alpine Village, Pirates Glen, and Buckhorn Lake Estates to allow for enforcement through the administrative monetary penalty system the administrative monetary penalty system bylaw to include penalties for the watering regulations bylaw, and the fees and charges bylaw to include fees to turn water services on and off.
All right, thank you very much, Adele. Does anyone have any comments or questions? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Limson. Thanks, Adele. Just one question. In reading the proposed bylaw, it addresses any person as the one who would be subject to the AMPS. I'm assuming that was very carefully worded to capture the owner, if they rent it out, short-term rental kind of thing, or if they have guests and they're not there. So I'm thinking the intent was to capture anybody who's at the dwelling and in fact breaks the bylaw. Is that, am I reading that right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, great.
Thank you. And Councillor Cadigan, you had a question.
Through your Mayor Lamb said, I wasn't aware that we had a problem with this, with the water usage. And how would I find that out? Like, where was the problem identified, or is it just people watering their lawns too much?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're trying to take our bylaws and put them into the AMP system. So if there is a violation, we have a way of penalizing or adding a penalty notice to any violations of the bylaw. And there are certain days which certain municipal addresses can water and certain days that you can't. So this is an existing bylaw that was in place, and we've just updated it and to include it into AMPS. And maybe our CAO will have some further details in terms of violations.
Thank you, Adele. And Dawn, would you like to speak to
Yes,
that?
thank you, and through you. So I can say that annually there are people that water their lawns more than they should. These systems are flat rate, so there's no meters associated. So there sometimes isn't all that much of an incentive not to. And the more water that's used, the more the pump house has to work to clean that water. And it's also a circumstance where there have been people fill pools and that type of thing. And that is one of the things they aren't supposed to do under the bylaw. So it's just a way, it does happen annually that people definitely do overwater, looking for that really green grass.
Thank you. Thank you, Adele.
Thank you. Spreading all them chemicals on their lawn that we put into the water to purify. Okay, any other comments or questions? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
I'll make the motion to receive the report and to support the amendments as described.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, you can retrieve Councillor Franzen.
I think you like leaving the meetings.
We all like leaving, we just don't like getting here. We all like learning. Maybe a minute. Oh, Councillor Franzen. That's- Yeah, he went and watered his lawn, oh my.
Yeah.
Check the bathroom. I don't think he's gonna rush. I don't think he's gonna rush. You've had your drop. Well, do we have to wait? We have a quorum. Okay. We were just hoping you didn't go and water your lawn. Councillor Franzen is back. We have a full council. We can move on to item 10.4.2 of our agenda. And Adele Arbor, our planner, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. And through you, Mayor Lambshead, this is an information report. I know it's been a while since Tekasi Ranch has done an official plan and zoning bylaw amendment in 2018, and they don't have a signed site plan agreement. So over the last few years, we've been meeting with them and working with them, and they have requested to downgrade or lessen the amount of activity on that site. So we were able to come to some sort of conclusion and agreement in terms of amending the site plan agreement, and they are on board to sign it. However, when we looked at the zoning, there are site-specific zonings for certain portions of the subject property, and where they initially proposed parking is not really where they want the parking located now. So that requires an amendment to the zoning bylaw. So they've proceeded with an application. The site plan agreement will be ready for them to sign, and they've cleared all and conditions related to removal of the hold. So through a technical minor zoning bylaw amendment, they are proceeding with a public meeting. We've got scheduled for the next meeting, August 6th, and we will be able to bring forward the zoning bylaw amendment to that meeting and have a site plan agreement, and they'll be in operation legally.
Great news. Thank you very much for that update. Anyone have any comments or questions for Adele? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. It's more of a comment. It's very nice. This has been going on since 2018. And it is very nice to see that this is moving forward. And I want to thank you, Adele, too, for working with the people at Tekasi Ranch to move this forward. And I look forward to the zoning zoning bylaw amendment request in August. So thank you.
Hey, any other comments or questions? Go ahead, Councillor Cadigan.
Motion to receive the report.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Franzen. Any other comments? I think it's interesting that we found a way, and I like that we found a way. I think that's very important, and I thank you for that, Adele. Okay, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you, Adele Arbor, our planner. Okay, now we can move on to item 12.5.1 of our agenda. 12.5 is finance, and 12.5.1 is Donna Taggart, our CAO treasurer. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yes, thank you, and through you. So before you is a report requesting the transfer of $3,000 from the blood lab reserve for the continued work of the lab technician at the Buckhorn Regional Health Center. So as a reminder, the funds in the blood lab reserve are from donations, and they're received in order for the continuation of lab services at the medical center. Funds are dispersed at the request of staff, and there has been a request of $3,000 from the reserve for the continued work of the blood lab technician. So therefore, I'm requesting that council receive the report and that they direct the CAO treasurer to transfer $3,000 from the Buckhorn Regional Health Center blood lab reserve for the continued work of the lab technician. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone have any comments or questions of Donna? Our CAO treasurer. I didn't introduce you properly. I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? The Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, I'll make the motion and then I'd like to make a comment. So motion to receive it and to direct you to transfer the $3,000 from the reserve.
Okay, I get a seconder for that motion. We got Councillor Franzen for a seconder, and you have a comment. Go ahead.
It always strikes me as odd that we are acting like a foundation for this health center. You know, in Kinmount, we have a foundation and a group. They raise the funds, they manage it, they support the operations. In this case, we were the recipients of the donations, and so we're operating now. It works. So, you know, I don't have any objection to it. It's just, it always strikes me as odd. That's the arrangement. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comment. Does anyone else have a comment? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to 12.6 of our agenda, which is administration. 12.6.1 is Donna Taggart, our CAO treasurer. Would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you and through you. So before you is a report on the 2024 update of the Conservation and Demand Management Plan. So the municipality first developed this plan as mandated in 2014 by the province, and it is now updated every 5 years as required under legislation. So since the last update of the plan in 2019, the municipality has reduced corporate energy intensity and greenhouse gas emissions by 20%. Energy intensity is defined as the amount of energy used to produce a given level of activity, and GHG emissions are the sum of emissions of various gases released into the atmosphere. So over some of the conservation measures over the past 5 years include the removal of inefficient appliances and the replacement of old furnaces and HVAC systems. There have been new water heaters, well pumps, and pressure tanks installed. New insulation and siding have been installed, weather stripping door frames and cladding, new LED lighting, and programmable thermostats. So there have also been efforts to keep the heat turned down in truck bays of municipal fire halls. And the plan commits to future energy reductions by continuing to undertake building, lighting, and equipment upgrades and exploring processes across the organization to raise energy conservation awareness among staff. So today I'm looking for council to receive the report on the update of the 2024 Energy Conservation and Demand Management Plan for information. Thank you.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much, Donna. Does anyone have any questions or comments? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? Just holding your nose, Councillor Braber? Okay. Sorry, Councillor Franzen, go ahead.
I support the recommendations from staff. Received the report and the recommendations from staff.
Okay.
And I'd like to make just a comment that I think staff has done a great job on this, and it's nice to see the reductions of the emission level in the atmosphere.
Can I get a seconder for that motion? Okay, Deputy Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. I was just trying to hold a sneeze.
I'm sure I can
apologize.
I knew that.
I want to echo Councillor Franzen's comments. And I want to thank staff for their efforts over the 5-year period to reduce the greenhouse gases through those initiatives that you've just stated. And I know that that is always on mind moving forward. So I just want to thank staff for that.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I just have one comment. 20% is amazing. I think if we can get a little further, that'll be fantastic. Thank you very much for keeping track of all of that. I'm sure that's quite a burden, to be honest with you. Thank you for that. Okay. Did I call for a vote yet? No. Call for a vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. You can tell when I get tired. We can move on to item 12.6.2 of our agenda, and Chastity Robertson, our Deputy Treasurer, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead, the musculoskeletal disorder prevention policy is reviewed on an annual basis and has been reviewed by the Joint Health and Safety Committee, the department heads, and SHRP. The recommendations have been incorporated into the attached amended policy and have been highlighted for reference. I am recommending that Council receive the musculoskeletal disorder prevention report from the Deputy Treasurer for information, and further that Council approve the amended musculoskeletal disorder prevention policy.
Okay, thank you very much, Chastity. Does anyone on Council have any questions of Chastity? I'm seeing none. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? See Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a mover.
Motion to receive and to approve
Okay.
the amended policy.
I see Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I just wanted to thank you, Chastity, very much, and I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you, Chastity Robertson. We can now move on to item 12.7 of our agenda, which is corporate services. 12.7.1, Bianca Dragicevic, our deputy clerk, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, and through you. This report before you outlines the work completed by municipal staff and other municipalities and First Nations to complete the terms of reference for the Peterborough County OPP Detachment Board. The terms of reference outlines the agreement and relationship between the municipalities and First Nations that comprise the board and the board itself. All municipalities and First Nations councils will need to approve these terms of reference, the terms of reference that are attached to this report. Further, for council's information, it was determined by staff that I would be assisting the board as the interim board administrator until the board is permitted to meet and a permanent admin for the board is chosen. So the recommendation from staff is to receive the report and to approve the terms of reference for the Peterborough County OPP Detachment Board. And if there are any questions, I would be happy to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bianca. Does anyone on council have any questions of Bianca? I'm seeing Councillor Braber. Go ahead.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. It's a comment. I wanted to officially thank Bianca for stepping up to act as interim executive director. It has greatly assisted the detachment board with moving items forward to achieve our actual quorum board. So really appreciate Bianca for doing that and coordinating all the other municipalities, and as well as our CAO with their communication and collaboration with the other municipalities in achieving these terms of reference, which is a first major step in moving us forward. So it's I think we'll really start to see us move forward with the other items that we have to address as per the CSPA, the Community Safety Policing Act. So thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Lamstead, and either Councillor Verga or Bianca. Just looking for a timeline. My understanding is that the police services boards have presently suspended their current operations. And I know that we have to get community members as well as provincial appointees or whatever onto the board. When do we expect we'll have a full detachment board in place and ready to start actually being in operation?
Councillor Braber wants to answer that question.
Yeah, I think I can assist, and Bianca, you can chime in once I'm finished if I've missed anything. Now the province, all the detachment boards in the province are experiencing the same difficulties with actually forming their detachment boards and becoming functional and starting to hold meetings. One of the main issues right now is insurance for all the detachment boards in Ontario. There was a wording that was changed in the CSPA, and I know that Lisa Darling, who's the executive director of the OAPSB, which is the Ontario Association of Police Services Board, and the board of directors are looking into a blanket insurance policy that'll cover all the detachment boards in Ontario, as opposed to leaving each detachment board their own devices to find their own insurance. Now, the insurance companies took issue with the certain wording, so that's what the stumbling block is right now, which won't allow us being the detachment board to actually meet with quorum, because we're not covered as far as insurance. Once that's done, and I actually have a meeting next week or on the 29th of this month with the OAPSB to discuss the insurance. So there may be some development with that. Now, as far as our detachment board, the Peterborough County Detachment Board, we have struck a working group without quorum. So currently it's a 7-member working group, and we're working through all the logistics of remuneration, choosing the executive director, and to your question, Deputy Mayor, as well as the community appointees, how that process is going to roll out. And as per the CSPA, it is a coordination between the municipality taking on that process in cooperation with the detachment board working group to come up with a process and how to pick the community members. As early as 3 days ago, there was a conversation as far as what the county's role will be, because it's a Peterborough County detachment board. So could we draw upon the county's assistance as far as do they create the process, or we create the process and then they select, being the Peterborough County. So those are the balls that are in the air right now. Once we do this working group, our purpose is to address all the other items that are mandated of the detachment boards as per the CSPA, have those in place, and then once the insurance issues resolve and we can actually have an official meeting, then we can draw all the other all the work that the working groups completed. We can draw that in and officially vote on it and have it enacted. So that's sort of a Coles Notes overview of where we are. And the provinces, all the other detachment boards are having issues. The Municipal Police Services Board, it's a different animal, whereas they are their own board. They have their own budgets and whatnot, and they dictate the policies to assist the police so they can provide effective and adequate policing.
So just what is the timeline? Do we have a timeline? I think that was the original question.
Yeah, so
is it a year? Is it 5 years?
Target date?
That's a lot of things in the air still. So.
Well, yeah, so the timeline as far as the insurance, I mean, we have a meeting on the 29th, so I don't have a clear answer for that. As far as the other items that are being addressed, as far as approaching the county through the municipal staff and whatnot, and all the other municipalities, we don't know. We don't have a specific rollout date when we're going to be officially meeting, so we don't. It's a result of all those balls that we have in the air.
May I follow up through you, Mayor Lamson? So just to clarify on the police services boards, my understanding was they're no longer operational.
No, as of April 1st, we're the new CSPA is rolled out, and technically we've been operating without detachment boards. So that's all over the province.
So there are no police service boards currently operating. That's the question.
No detachment boards, correct.
That Community Safety and Policing Act did come in effect April 1st, correct?
It did, yes.
Okay, thank you.
It's a long road yet, but thank you very much for being on that board, or on that preface to the board.
Right.
Go ahead.
Through you, Mayor, I don't know if Bianca wanted to add to that.
Yes, Bianca, did you want to speak?
No, I think, sorry, through you, I think Councillor Raybrook covered most of that. I would just like to reiterate that the working group is not intended to make decisions on behalf of the board. It would just be an avenue to make recommendations to the board once they can meet. And that as the interim administrator, I have been in conversations with the county as well as the detachment commander to kind of get those options ready for both the working group and the board when they can meet. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Bianca. If there's anything that Deputy Mayor Armstrong and myself can do at the county level, please don't hesitate to reach out, because we will bring anything forward that we have to. Thank you. Okay. I'm not even sure where we are now. Do we have a mover and a seconder? No. Okay. So anyone prepared to make a motion in regards to this item? Councillor Cadigan for a mover.
Motion to receive the report.
Okay.
And approve the reference for your County OPP Detachment Board.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay. That's why I get confused. Sometimes I got to get a motion and a seconder before we start a conversation, which is what I'm supposed to do. Okay, we can move on now to item 12.7.2 of our agenda. Bianca Dragicevic, would you like to speak to this item?
Yes, thank you. And through you, before you is the report for council expenses received for June 2024 and the remainder of May 2024 for your review and authorization. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone prepared to make a motion? See Councillor Cadigan for a mover. And Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. Any conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can now move on to item 12.7.3 of our agenda, which is Jesse Clark, our Director of Corporate Services and Clerk. Would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor Lambshead. At council's last meeting, they directed staff to proceed with an application from Stephen and Marianne Hussar to purchase a portion of the unopened road allowance adjacent to their property. A notice was placed in accordance with the disposal of real property policy, and no comments from neighboring property owners have been received. The next steps will be to provide a survey and obtain a fair market value of the land. The recommendation is that council receive the report, declare the eastern portion of the unopened road allowance as surplus to the needs of the municipality, authorize the stop up and closure of said road allowance, and authorize the sale to the adjacent landowners, being the Hussars.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Clark. Anyone prepared to make a motion? No. See, okay, Councillor.
Make a motion to support that.
Okay, as recommended.
As recommended.
Okay, and do I have a seconder for that motion? I'm seeing Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. Any other conversation or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Braybrook.
Just a quick comment through you, Mayor. It's nice to see that things are moving forward with this particular item.
Thank you very much for your comments. Any other comments? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 13 of our agenda, which is correspondence for information. We have item 13.1 and 13.2. We can speak to them individually or both at the same time. Go ahead.
Motion to receive both.
Okay. A seconder for that motion. I see Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. Any conversation?
I just wanted to comment that the recommendations that Melissa French has made, are we going to discuss them in the notice of motion?
Now's the time to discuss them. If you want to discuss them, then now's the time.
But Councillor Braybrook notice of motion, and this ties into its notice of motion.
Yeah, Councillor Braybrook.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Franzen. Yeah, I had communication with Melissa as well, Ms. French.
Yeah.
And part of her recommendations or ideas are going to be addressed, but there would have to be more conversation about like implementing all of them. So one of the items is going to be addressed.
Okay.
Any other conversation? I'm seeing now, I realize that we are moving forward with our motion too. So it's nice that we have residents coming forth with some ideas. I think that's a great idea. And we know that they know that we're listening to them. Okay, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 14 of our agenda, which is correspondence for action. We have several on here. You want to go through them all at one at a time or all at once? It's entirely the discretion of council. I think we do have a 901 funding request in there. So if somebody wants to pull one, we can.
Through you, Mayor, I'd like to pull it 14.2.
Okay.
If I may.
Sure, we can. If you want, anyone else want to pull any of the other ones?
Mayor Lam said I have 3 or 4, so I'm wondering if we
Just
have to
do
just
one
do
at a
them
time.
all
Yeah, okay,
individually.
that's good. Okay, item 14.1, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. Joint healthcare resolution. Anyone like to speak to that? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
I'd like to make a motion to support this, particularly in light of the presentation that we had earlier by Lori Ritchie.
Okay, that is an excellent motion. Does anyone care to second that motion? I see Councillor Braybrook for a seconder. Any conversation about that item? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We can move on to item 14.2 of our agenda, which is Canada 911 Ride Foundation. Would anyone like to speak to that item? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Jim Adamson, who presented to council last year in and around this time, he was unable to make it. He was hoping to be able to present this in person. So this is in lieu of it. And I believe last year it was very well attended along the roads and the Trent Lakes and whatnot. And they had initially indicated that, you know, each year they go to different areas, but it was well received. So they're going to be starting off again at the same area in Selwyn, and they're going to be coming through the same route as they did last year. And I believe last year we approved a donation of $500, and I'd like to put a motion forward to provide $500 for this year's 911 ride, and encourage the residents of Trent Lakes to participate once again, and perhaps we can put that out in our website to highlight it.
Thank you very much for that motion, and I'd not be looking for a seconder. I would like to second that. So it's very important to me. I think that's it was well attended last year, and Councillor Braber and myself did attend the beginning and opening ceremonies, which was quite amazing. A lot of passion there. Okay, any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, we can move on now to item 14.3 of our agenda, which is City of Brampton. Would anyone like to speak to that item or have a motion? Brantford, sorry. Go ahead, Councillor Brantford.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to receive.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 14.4 of our agenda, which is the Eastern Ontario Warden's Office, calling for investment in municipal infrastructure for Eastern Ontario's small and rural communities. Anyone prepared to make a motion? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Lamstead. The Eastern Ontario Warden's Caucus has prepared a paper on the inadequacies of funding at the municipal level to repair and replace infrastructure. And so they've drafted up a motion for any or all municipalities to support. I won't read it all. The therefore part of it says that Trent Lakes joins the Eastern Ontario Warden Caucus and others in calling on the federal and Ontario governments to immediately and sustainably partner with municipal governments by investing in both the new and ongoing maintenance and repairs of municipal infrastructure in Eastern Ontario's small rural municipalities, and that the federal and Ontario governments immediately review data and work together to implement solutions, and that the resolution be forwarded to a whole list of people.
Okay. Was that a motion?
That was a motion.
Perfect.
Motion to support as presented.
Excellent. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversations? I just think this is very important that we support this because we do need funding for our infrastructure. Need help. Okay, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you. And we can move on to 14.5 of our agenda, which is Green Roads Pilot Project. Anyone like to speak to that item? Go ahead, Councillor Braber.
A motion to receive.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 14.6, which is the Municipality of Tweed OPP funding. Would anyone like to speak to that item? This is important to me. It's something that I don't think this will ever happen. It would be nice if the province of Ontario would help some of our smaller municipalities with their rather large costs for policing. I think we're at $1.8 million or something like that for our small municipality of 6,000-7,000 ratepayers locations. So it's important. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lamstead. I agree with you. I would prefer the wording to be something like to study the viability of, rather than to demand that the province reabsorb the cost. I just don't know enough about it yet to see how all the funds would get spread around. So I'm wondering if we could support it with a slight word change. And I don't know if our clerk.
If you would like to make that motion, I think we can.
Oh, you're looking at me.
Well, if you, we can-
So on the now therefore it be resolved that the Municipality of Trent Lakes call on the Ontario government to investigate the potential of reabsorbing the cost of the OPP back into the provincial government.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment. I don't believe the OPP should ever have been municipal responsibility to pay. They're called the Ontario Provincial Police, and I think they should be, it is a provincial matter.
Paid through taxation. Okay, any other comments? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 14.7 of our agenda, which is the Ontario Coalition for Better Childcare and Canadian Union of Public Employees. Anyone like to speak to that item? We can have a motion. I see Councillor Cadigan for a mover.
Motion to receive.
And Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to 14.8 of our agenda, which is the Township of Emo Operation Budget Funding. Operational budget funding. Does anyone like to speak to that? Go ahead, Councillor Praber.
Motion to receive.
Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Cadigan for a second. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can go to item 14.9, is Township of Emo again, which is a request for the province of Ontario for new provincial municipal fiscal framework. You would like to speak to that item? Go ahead.
Thanks.
Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
This is aligned with the previous one about supporting infrastructure costs at the municipal level. I thought we have supported this at least once, if not twice, but it's basically calling for a review of the rationalization of funding between provinces and municipalities. I think it's way overdue.
Yeah, me too. You prepared to make a motion?
So that is a motion to support this.
Okay,
I'm
motion
sorry.
of support. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? See Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Now we can move on to item 14.10 of our agenda, which is Township of Tonabee, South Monaghan, regulations about the safe and use of lithium-ion batteries. Would anyone like to speak to that item? Councillor Praber, go ahead.
Motion to receive.
Do I have a seconder for that motion? See Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I will call for a vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on now to bylaws. 15 of our agenda, which is bylaw. We have 15.1 is the bylaws on the agenda memorandum, and I think Jesse Clark, you would like to speak to that item, please.
Thank you. Through your Mayor Lamstead, there's two bylaws on today's agenda that didn't have a corresponding staff report or public meeting. The first is B 2024-047, which is the bylaw to amend the delegation of authority bylaw as directed at the June 18th council meeting to allow planning staff to make recommendations directly to Peterborough County Land Division for consent files, as well as B 2024-51, which is the bylaw to authorize the execution of a municipal funding agreement to receive the Canada Community Building Fund, which was formerly the gas tax fund.
Okay, thank you very much, Jesse Clark. Now we can go do all of these in one motion, or we can go and do them individually. That's entirely at the discretion of council. Go ahead, Councillor France.
I'll make one motion to receive them all.
Approve it.
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a second for that motion? The Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. Any conversation? We can talk about any one of them now if you want. I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay, we can now move to item 16, which is business arising out of a previous meeting. Item 16.1 Barbara Waldron, our Director of Building and Planning and CBO, would you like to speak to this item, please? Barbara, did we make you fall asleep? I apologize.
No. I'm sorry, through you, Mayor Lamson, I'm here. I was just struggling finding my on button there. So the building bylaw was brought before you at the previous meeting and it was deferred to this meeting. We are just formally letting you know that we're going to be bringing it to the next meeting. We have a little bit more discussion to happen behind the scenes before it comes forward.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Barbara. Is anyone prepared to make a motion? I see Councillor Cadigan.
Motion to receive the report.
For the matter to the next meeting.
For the matter.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Councillor Franzen for a seconder. Any other conversation? I'm seeing none. I want to make a comment. Hope you had a great holiday, and I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Okay. Thank you, Barbara. We can move on to item 17 of our agenda, which is notice of motion, and we have 17.1. Councillor Braybrick, would you like to speak to this item, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I would. I believe council has had an opportunity to review this motion. So I'll just jump ahead to the, and put a motion forward that council approve the amendment to the original concept drawing rendered by Think Design as shown in Appendix A, with the adjustments agreed upon by the residents, Lakehurst Hall Board and the Director of Recreation Facilities, so as to allow the Director of Recreation Facilities to continue with their 2024 work plan on the Lakehurst Hall lower bowl development.
Thank you very much. Do I have a seconder for that motion? I see Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Anybody have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I just have a comment. I think it looks nice that you're going to rotate it a little bit for the amphitheater potential or the green space down below. So it looks interesting. Yeah.
It just through you, Mayor, just wanted to make a comment as well, and I appreciate the residents' input. I think the end result is going to be it's going to be aesthetically more pleasing than the original design. So we're looking forward to that.
Thank you for the amendments and modifications.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions? I'm seeing none. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Okay, we can move on to item 17.2 of our agenda. And Councillor Braybrick, you have a notice of motion. Please speak to that item.
Yes, I do. Thank you. And through you, Mayor, again, I believe council has had an opportunity to review this motion. So I'll propose a motion that our Director of Public Works, with the support of our county representatives, Mayor Lambshead and Deputy Mayor Armstrong, contact his counterpart at Peterborough County Public Works with the intention of securing a commitment from the Peterborough County Road Supervisor to purchase 2 solar-powered illuminated speed notification signs similar to or exactly like the ones illustrated in photos 2 and 3 to be installed this season in the areas suggested in yellow in photo 4, and discussing the potential of implementation of photo radar in key areas on County Road 507 and provide a report to council in relation to this discussion.
Thank you for that motion. Do I have a seconder?
I wonder if I can propose an amendment to that?
Sure.
I'm sorry I didn't do this sooner.
Would you second that motion first?
Oh, yes, I will second
Okay,
that motion.
okay, perfect.
Yep.
Now go ahead.
Caught me. Could we add a third bullet that says with let me see if I have a voice here. With the intention of expediting, yeah,
We need some water? I can get you some
I
water.
think I can get it through here, with the intention of expediting the implementation of the previously recommended community safety zone.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Are you okay with that amendment to that motion?
A comment before.
Sure.
I'm just wondering if
Decouple.
yeah, treat that as a separate issue. I just don't want, because myself, as well as the residents in that area have expressed a desire for something to be done sort of yesterday. Same as the community safety zone, but I just don't want to slow this immediate process down with the ongoing community safety zone unless all three bullets can be addressed equally without slowing the other ones down. So
we're looking at you, Evan, for some comment.
Thank you, Mayor Lamstead. Yes, I just have a comment just regarding securing. So the purchase, these solar powered signs, if you're looking them by the end of summer, I know typically just from experience, and we purchased one when I was with Cavan Monaghan, it was about 5 years ago, and it was in the range of $10,000 for one sign. So to purchase two of them, there'll be $20,000. So there'll be some financial impact to that. Understanding the timeline, by the time I talk to Peterborough County, if they have to take a report to get funds, it probably won't go to council probably until September realistically. So these signs probably wouldn't be installed until end of September, October, just so you're aware of the timeline there. And then as well, the comment of securing a commitment. So understanding of what that commitment would look like. Are you looking for like a formal agreement, of email, just sort of understanding of what the intention of what you would expect back from me? I know you referenced the report, but just what securing a commitment means.
Go ahead,
yeah, through you, Mayor. Thanks, Evan. Securing a commitment is instead of just a conversation, we're having an issue, the motion was brought forward, can you implement these signs? It's more of a yes, we will, we acknowledge it, and we will. Subject to, there's going to be a cost implication, so that'll trigger, as you alluded to,
Absolutely.
Evan, so.
Yep, thank you, Mayor Lambs. Just to speak to that as well. So from my experience with the county, especially in regards to these flashing radar signs, which I'm looking for, they typically only install them around community safety zones. From my experience, for example, when I was with Cavan Monaghan, we installed two, one at each end of County Road 21. However, that cost was borne by the municipality on the county road. So there might be the discussion of, yes, we will support that, but the cost for the sign installation, because the county has a process for these installations, and unfortunately, I don't believe that would meet their requirements, that we as a municipality would be bearing that burden of the cost. So just to keep that in mind as well, which isn't an issue, I just wanted to raise it as a sort of.
Go ahead, Councilor Bear. Thank you, through Mary. Yeah, and that's very valid points. Perhaps what you're mentioning there, that can be built into the report back to council as far as in the way of options.
Okay.
Laying out what you just alluded to, whether the option one is to address the county, have the county pay for it. And obviously your research will say they don't normally do it. They only do it in community safety zones. You said they don't normally, so I guess flesh out whether it has been done anywhere else and that sort of thing, and whether it did in fact involve a community safety zone, because that might be a moot point. So, and then another option could be if the county, it could be a shared cost, and then that's something that council could consider. So, and it's more of your report will flesh out a lot of those points, I believe.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor Lamson. I don't know the answer to this process question. Would it be more effective if Mayor Lamshead and I introduced a motion to county council as opposed to having come through staff back to county council? And I just don't know what would be the most effective way to approach this.
Use an opportunity to speak to this motion, because this will go to county council, this request. So, and staff at the county are already working on this. They already know this is coming. They're well aware of what's happening and what our requests are going to be. So with conversation with Sharon Graham and the CAO at the county, they're well aware. Their staff is working on this too from the other end. So this might be a fairly quick process, and I hope it is.
So it'd be better to just wait for that to come up and then support it and try and get the rest of county council to support it as well. Okay, thank you.
So through you, Mayor, I don't know if we've addressed Deputy Mayor's concern about the community safety zone for a friendly amendment. Have we resolved that?
Could I just ask, do you have any updates on that at all, Evan?
Yep, thank you, Deputy Mayor Armstrong, through Mayor Lamshead. So we have received updates. I know I've provided some updates to different members of council. I know Councillor Cadigan was asking it. So they have hired a person specifically that's working through those hit list items that are on the transportation master plan. he is working on it. They had said that by the end of the summer, they would have something, a resolution to come and how to implement it or not implement, sort of where the process is and what they're doing with it. So that last time I spoke to him, and it would have been in May, they said something in September typically would be, we should see something. So I don't know if that's not quick enough or quick enough, but that's sort of what the information that we
I would
provided.
just take it out, leave your motion as it stands, and if something doesn't happen by September, then we go back at it.
Thank you. And there was some ideas of the community safety zone being quite a bit larger. Well, there was ideas on that too, so that the signage could happen a little more broad. Okay, all right, we've had discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Trent.
Yeah, I have a question through you, Mayor. It may go to Councillor Braybrook. I don't understand the concept of photo radar. Do they identify the driver? Are there demerit points, or is it just a fine?
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Franzen, I believe the intent or the spirit of photo radar is to capture speeders, identify them through their plate. They wouldn't identify the drivers, they'd identify the registered owner. It's similar to the photo radar in the city.
Yep.
Where, won't say that my vehicle received a ticket. It's the owner that receives a ticket. It basically, you can't fight it. It goes to the registered owner, and you basically have to pay the fine. So as far as identifying the people, it'll identify the registered owner of the vehicle.
So follow up, there wouldn't be demerit points or a charge of dangerous driving to an individual.
Through you, Mayor, to Councillor Franzen, no, there wouldn't be, but just because of the process of photo radar, static photo radar, it only captures a vehicle. If it's speeding, then it basically issues a fine to the owner. The only way somebody would be charged with dangerous driving and that sort of thing would have to be active enforcement. And I mean, we can get into a conversation about trying to identify.
Please don't.
Yeah, I know. As far as motorcycles, I mean, it's the police services across Ontario are mandated not to pursue certain vehicles. Yep. So enforcement, we're trying to mitigate. We're trying to do as best we can, and we only have so many OPP officers for Peterborough County. So,
okay. Any other questions? I'm feeling a little bit targeted right now. We've had conversations about speed bumps, photo radar. I feel like I have to slow down. Thank you very much. Okay. We've got a motion, and we did not.
Oh, did I second it?
Yeah, you seconded it, and we don't have an amendment, so I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Thank you very much for that motion. And conversation, that was good. Now we can move on to item 18 of our agenda, which is an information items. Does anyone have any information items? Go ahead.
Sorry, I do. I know it's been a long meeting so far.
Please do. No, it's okay.
I just wanted to update everybody that there is now an interim CEO of our libraries, both the Trent Lakes and the Cavendish branch. She started July 11th. Her name is Marianne Burney. She has school library experience. She's working already with the staff to look at some new initiatives, including a volunteer program, which would be a terrific addition to the overall operation of our library for people that want to volunteer their time in the library. A posting for a permanent CEO is going to go up soon. And the timeline, if it works, would have us putting somebody in that position probably in the September timeframe.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that update, Deputy Mayor Armstrong. Any other information items? Okay, I'm seeing none. We will move on to item 19 of our agenda, which is closed meeting. I would need a motion to go into close. Councillor Cadigan for a mover. Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. Now we are going into closed for Ontario, under the Ontario Municipal Act, Section 239(2), to discuss B, personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, municipal employees. C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board proposed acquisition. D, labor relations and employees negotiations, municipal employees. And E, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board statement of claim. And F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privileges, including communications necessary for that purpose, legal notice. Now I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion is carried. We are now going into closed. All right, I would entertain a motion to rise from closed. I see Councillor Brayberg for a mover and Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We are back in our regular meeting. We can move on to item 20, which is business arising from the closed meeting. Item 20.1 is the adoption of the minutes of our closed meeting. I would entertain a motion for same. See Councillor Cadigan for a mover and Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 21 of our agenda, which is the adoption of the confirming bylaw. Item 21.1 is the confirming bylaw. Let's see. Councillor Franzen for a mover and Deputy Mayor Armstrong for a seconder. I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. We can move on to item 22 of our agenda, which is adjournment. I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Councillor Brayberg for a mover, Councillor Cadigan for a seconder. Any conversation? You don't want to move? We want to stay here? No? I will call for the vote. All in favor? That motion has carried. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to staff, council, and everyone that attend both virtually and in person.